Okay, we are now live, so we're all set.
Great. Sorry, folks, for the delay. We were having some technical difficulties getting everybody on Zoom. But thank you for being with us for the special budget work session. Will the clerk please call the roll, keeping in mind our new rules regarding virtual meetings?
Councilmember Babcock.
Present, attending virtually from East Lansing, County of Ingham, State of Michigan. Thank you.
Councilmember Bacon.
Present, attending virtually, East Lansing, Michigan, Clinton County.
Councilmember Watson.
Here, attending virtually, Ingham County, Michigan, East Lansing.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregg.
Here, attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Mayor Stevens.
Present, attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County. Great. On to our next item, which is approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to that agenda? If there are not, then I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the proposed agenda.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bacon. Motion by Councilmember Babcock. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great. That passes unanimously. We are on to item 4, which is communication from council members. If anybody has anything to say during this special budget work session, I will start with the Mayor Pro Tem.
I am uncommunicative today. Got
Great.
nothing to say about budgets.
Great. Councilmember Watson.
I'm going to pass.
Great. Councilmember Bacon.
I'll reserve comment for the regular meeting if needed.
Understood. Councilmember Babcock.
Why break a trend? I'll save comments for later this evening if necessary.
Great. I love being the one to break a trend. So I do have one comment. We've talked a little bit about at previous budget work sessions, the money that we get via state allocation for marijuana within our state as a city that obviously allows the sale of recreational marijuana and has approved licenses at this point and has establishments that are up and running. We get a certain allocation. It's not a huge amount of money, certainly, but when we originally passed that ordinance, a lot of the discussion revolved around, well, when that money comes in, whatever amount it is really is, we're going to have to see. But what can we do to utilize some of those funds to help folks, and especially to help folks that might have, either had a bad effect in their life due to drugs, or in some cases had a bad effect on their life due to the war on drugs. And so really what I was thinking about over time was, okay, what is the best way to utilize this money? And since this is really the first time that I've seen this dollar amount allocated in some way, I was trying to think of unique ways that we could do it. The first thing that I looked into is, do we have any outstanding fees or costs for previous charges of like possession of marijuana or tickets? We decriminalized this, of course, before it was legalized. So there was a small fine on tickets. What the response that I got back from staff was that no, there weren't any outstanding costs due to that. Now, we have a wonderful court here, the 54B District Court, that does a lot of things that are really great. And I can highlight the incredible work of our specialty courts all day long, the sobriety court, the drug court, the veterans court, that do really, really incredible work to work with folks. And those courts have grants that assign them money, especially to help with paying for folks' testing, paying for counseling, other things like that. However, there's a certain amount of a population of people that are on probation or in our court system right now that have to pay out of pocket for some of those services, right? So if they have to get a drug test or utilize, and now I'm forgetting the name of the device, but the device that you put in your car to make sure that you're not operating under the influence or other things like that, you might actually have to pay out of pocket for that. And when we're talking about the amount of money that we're actually getting here, really not in the hundreds of thousands and in the tens of thousands, I thought of, okay, what's the biggest thing that we can make an impact with this money? And so what I thought of, and what I would really ask staff to look into, because of course we have some great judges and some experts that work in the court, is maybe creating an indigent fund that either the judges or probation officers or clerks would be able to utilize in situations where folks could not afford to do the things that are really legally required of them, right? Because we're putting that on folks for either their safety or to make sure that they're participating in the process effectively. But sometimes those costs they catch up. And what we're talking about here is maybe a couple of $100s a month for somebody. And we have this money that might make a significant impact in there. But for that individual, that could be a really big expense on top of the issues that might have come from why they're in the situation in the first place. So that's my budget communication. Is I've thought about it a lot, and I've really tried to analyze what is the best way that we can use this money. And I think this would honestly be a really, really great thing to do, especially for our folks that are in need and that are going through the criminal justice system, as we all know, still has its problems, still is inequitable. And I think this might help. So George, if you would be able to maybe get, if it's Nicole Evans or if it's Judge Larkin, Judge Ball, on how this might be created, I think that this might be something that would be cool.
Yeah, Mayor, you already mentioned this to me, and I've already started following up with the court administrator to ask what sort of needs they see in terms of where people who are indigent are touching upon this issue of drug testing or even sobriety with MIP issues. So we're looking at those issues in terms of making a recommendation to council on that.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm cognizant of the fact that we're not in a discussion meeting. I have also thought about the incoming marijuana money and kind of reserving it for a specific purpose, just due to the fact that marijuana in general and the illegalization of it has had a very negative effect on certain populations. I like your idea. I'm curious to see how much money would be needed to be dedicated to that, but I actually think that opening this up as a discussion meeting so that other council members could weigh in with what ideas that they might want to have with that fund would also be good. I think East Lansing in general, it was not the council that is currently seated, but I think we really missed the mark in addressing equity licensing when we allowed licensing in East Lansing. And I think that using those taxes in a way to kind of offset that might be a good idea, which I think your idea certainly definitely does, but I think there might be other things to do too. And, it's a limited pool of money, but it's a probably growing pool of money. So getting some ideas about what might be good for it as it comes in, as opposed to just putting it into the general fund, I think would be good. So. Yeah.
And at this point, City Manager, are we expected to maybe utilize that extra meeting?
Yeah, so that's a discussion for council. We probably have one item that I've heard from council, community development block grant discussion we want to have. We can do that perhaps next week during the regular discussion meeting at 7 o'clock, because I don't think we have a very heavy agenda at this point. Or we can have the meeting at 5 o'clock as well. We really have to look to see how many items we have and what council's preference is. Perhaps after this discussion, we can do that.
Yeah, maybe this would be
at the end of this budget meeting.
Yeah, maybe this would be something that we could add to that discussion. I'd be more than happy to hear other council members' takes on it. And then I have one more item, and it's just to really state, and this is more of an instruction for the city manager. We have a council that is relatively new, and we've gotten a lot of questions on the pension system as of late. And I think that it would be good, even if it's not during necessarily the actual budget cycle, but soon, to have a kind of a full presentation on our pension system, where we are, what our percentage is, and what it means, and what our future looks like. I think that you've done a very good job, obviously, in expressing that to the community over the past few years. But that information is always pertinent, especially now that we're about a year and a half, 2 years into the income tax. I think it would be good to maybe have a little bit of an updated conversation on what our plans are moving forward.
Yep, Mayor, I think that's a great idea. It's actually going to be timely. In June, we typically get our new actuarial valuation from MERS. So we'll have the most up-to-date information likely next month. And I think that would certainly be a good time to do that presentation.
Okay, great. I'll love to see it. All right, and that's what I got for the budget work session, although I'm sure I will have more things to bore you with when we get to our regular meeting. All right, our next item on the agenda is discussion items. First is 5.1, discussion of the Parks and Recreation Fund fee schedule and CIP. Mr. McCaffrey, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to share the screen here. I trust that the screen is sufficiently shared at this point.
It is.
Good. Thank you. So this will be a presentation on Parks and Recreation. First of all, I plan to talk about the Parks and Recreation Fund fiscal year 22 budget request. Then a little bit about the fiscal year 22 proposed fee schedule, which has some very minor adjustments in it. Then I was going to talk a little bit about the Parks Capital Improvement Program for fiscal year 22, and then some emerging trends and initiatives that we're kind of seeing as we work our way through the Parks and Recreation operation, through capital improvements, and working closely with the Advisory Parks and Recreation Commission. So I'll start with the Parks and Recreation fee schedule. The last few years, I've always liked to start out talking a little bit simply about, I guess it's kind of our mission or our vision, that our Department of Parks and Recreation encourages active, healthy, creative, and environmentally lifestyles. We do that through a wide range of activities, events, programs, festivals at our indoor and outdoor community center, the soccer complex, the aquatic center, community parks, obviously neighborhood parks, certainly the trail, Northern Tier Trail. And in addition, we use all of the elementary schools for our popular before and after school program. So in a typical year, we also surpass probably attendance of 450 individuals. Now, I'll get back to that in just a few minutes. To really sum up the Parks and Recreation Fund, the whole Parks and Recreation Fund, really is that the pandemic has had a significant impact on the department, both financially and operationally. And these impacts can easily be seen by the revenue and expense fluctuations in our fiscal year 2021 year-end estimate, as well as we look towards the fiscal year 2022 budget request, and I'll get into that. And in general, the fiscal year 2022 budget assumes a gradual return to normal operations, although not entirely back to pre-pandemic levels as we work through fiscal year 2022. I'm going to start with attendance before I start talking about the dollars situation. And if we assume that fiscal year 2019 attendance is for lack of a better term, a typical year, I don't like to use normal, but I guess we could say a normal year. And we had attendance in the 462,000 range in fiscal year 19. Then, of course, the pandemic started affecting operations in March of fiscal year 20. And between March and the end of June, which is the remainder of the fiscal year we had in 2020, we saw a 33% decline, obviously, in attendance because our facilities were all closed, okay? Then if you look at fiscal year 2021 estimated attendance, now that we've been able to put together and think through as we've been constructing the budget for fiscal year 2021 and looking closely, we're still looking at a significant reduction in attendance, 51% from that base year of fiscal year 2019. with 224,929 estimated attendance. And also, please remember that that's still an estimated attendance number. It's not, it's the best estimate that we can do. And as we look forward to fiscal year 2022, as suggested just a few minutes ago, we're hoping to begin moving towards pre-pandemic levels, but we still expect our attendance to be down in fiscal year 2022 as compared to a typical year or what would be considered a normal year. So if you start with attendance, then of course, that begins to show you a little bit about our situation when we start looking at the revenue and the operational expense side. Well, before I get to that though, here's a little bit more detail with respect to the program attendance report. This document is also in your packet, but I was just going to show that document and show how it translates into pretty much everything that I said across the board in almost every activity area of our department, that attendance is down significantly, contributing to all of our situations with respect to revenue, expense, attendance, and et cetera. So looking at the fiscal year 2022 budget, I mean, this is the document, even a little bit more of a summarized view of the document that you see in your budget with fiscal year 20 actual budget situation, where we were able to, even with a significant reduction, hold our operating surplus or deficit down to about $50,000 at the end of the fiscal year as a result of a lot of the work that was done, going out and getting additional grants, all of the things that we did and we've talked about in the past. The fiscal year 2021 amended budget shows that's the budget prior to COVID, and that's the budget that was approved by City Council, which I'm going to get to in just a minute. And then, of course, the fiscal year 22 budget, which is showing now $4,055,000 for fiscal year 22 in both revenues and the expense category. When you start to show, going back to this conversation about the fiscal year 2019 actual, and you get to see a typical year, and then you also put in this equation, the year-end estimate, you begin to start to see the impacts both on the reduction in revenue side and both on the reduction in expense side, but still because of the significant reduction in revenues, we required additional general fund, which I'm going to go to right now. I want to look real quickly, once again, fiscal year 2019 actual expenses, and then compare it to what we're estimating our year-end estimate to be in fiscal year 2021 at this point. As you can see, earned income, and when I reference earned income, that is not general fund transfer. That's pretty much everything else. Our registration fees, our box office fees for the theater, our user fees for any of our programs, all of our revenues besides for general fund. You see that those revenues we're estimating will be down $1,749,000 this year. If you look at the expenses, those are down too. We're looking at personnel services down $373,000. We're looking at operating and other expenses down another $764,000. But because our earned income, the revenue that we generate through all of our other sources besides the general fund, is down so significantly, we still have a significant requirement in terms of an additional general fund transfer. The $578,000 number is not exact number because that doesn't include the dollar amount that was already budgeted for inflation, but a significant use of general fund as compared to what we're accustomed to as we look at fiscal year 2021 year-end estimate, to the tune of a general fund transfer of $2.6 million versus just over $2 million, which we're accustomed to. Now, as we look and we start to compare with where we're going in fiscal year 22, we begin to see obviously the rebound, if you will, that I was talking about with actual earned income compared to 2019, using that as your base year once again. Now our revenue is forecast to be down about $580,000. And our general fund transfer is forecast to be increased about just under 200,000 as compared to 2019. So you see, we still have a reliance on more general fund as we look at fiscal year 2022. However, we start to see the correction in fiscal year 2022 as compared to the situation we're in fiscal year 2021 with an additional, 500,000 plus in general fund transfer coming to the Parks and Recreation Fund. That's pretty much the overview. I can go over every single activity area. I was not planning to do that. I was planning to go directly into fee schedule if you'd like, or if you have, if that's all right with the city council.
It's all right with me, but I'm more than happy to hear if other folks want to go through programs. Not seeing any, so please proceed.
The fee schedule, there again, we have, I think I counted it out to be 1 year, we have as many as 650 different fees that we charge throughout the course of the year for our various activities, events, programs, services, and what have you. And our objective for the most part this year was to stay the course in terms of our fee schedule coming out of the pandemic versus trying to make significant increases or what have you, although we did do some revisions in the fee schedule. One of them is the soccer league team, the Lansing United Women's Soccer team, looking at a fee reduction there because that program, although there used to be a men's team, the men's team had far more impacts on our facilities, and the fee reduction for the women's soccer team is identified because the women's soccer program through this team does not have as significant impact on our facilities and on our staff. The Hannah Classroom 211 is not really a fee adjustment. It's a housekeeping item. For some reason, Classroom 211, the fee has not changed. It's been the same, but it had somehow been missed in terms of being on the fee schedule. So that although it's identified as a new fee, it really isn't. It's been there for years and it was missed on the fee schedule. Our before and after school program, once again, held at East Lansing Public Schools in each of the elementary schools. We're looking at a $1 to $2 daily increase depending on different situations and the various fees that we offer. And the reason for this is we anticipate at this point in time that East Lansing Public Schools is going to be ending elementary school day, although we don't know for sure, at 2:30 in the afternoon versus 3:30 in the afternoon, which is going to require us to offer 1 hour additional of daycare, or excuse me, before and after school care on a daily basis for all the children that elect to participate in the program they have in 2000 academic year that starts next fall. And then we have some children's theater program fee increases of $1 to $2 for show tickets and up to as much as $5 for academies and workshops. We are discontinuing, we have discontinued our adult softball program, so the fee schedule shows the adult softball program being discontinued. Our reason for discontinuing the program is we've seen significant declines in attendance. We've talked about that with City Council, I think, for each of the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know if, for example, Mayor Stevens will remember that conversation or not over the years, but we've been talking about discontinuing that program. And when the pandemic hit, we didn't offer it last year and we're not offering it again this year. This is not a phenomenon with the reduction in adult softball strictly in East Lansing, Michigan. This is something that's happening throughout the state of Michigan And in fact, in most areas around the country, although not all areas around the country.
Yeah. Councilmember Babcock, did you have something? And then Councilmember Watson as well.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Mr. McCaffrey, didn't we just spend a good amount of money on softball fields in the past year or year and a half? I recall this from during my tenure on council.
Sure, that's a good question. Yes, we did. Now, what the discontinuation of the adult softball program gave us the opportunity to move to sort of put a new focus on our youth program. So now our East Lansing Baseball Club will play all of their games out at the softball complex, as well as the East Lansing girls softball program will play all of their games out at the softball complex. And we'll move all of our youth recreation baseball and softball over to Patriarch Park. And we will use fewer satellite facilities. We won't be using fields at Marble. Those fields don't exist anymore, or fields at some of the other parks. So we've used this discontinuation of adult softball to sort of refocus our business plan towards our youth program. The other component that I'd like to make sure I share with you with respect to the softball complex is probably 90% of those funds for the improvements to the softball complex came from contributions that were facilitated by the East Lansing Baseball Club. Yep. So I'm not remembering the exact dollar amounts, but the vast majority of the expense associated with those improvements that we did are doing out at this softball complex are a result of the contributions that the East Lansing Baseball Club facilitated. Now, I know that was an extremely long answer, and I hope that answered your question.
Just a few follow-up questions. First off, how many participants do we have in youth softball and baseball in East Lansing?
There's two programs. There's the youth baseball program that we offer. And historically, there's about 300 or more youth that participate in that program. And then although I don't know that those are the numbers that exist this year, clearly because we're not out of the pandemic, okay? And
okay.
The numbers for the East Lansing Baseball Club are, I think, about half of the numbers that we have for our rec baseball. And I think I can't tell you what they are for the girls softball program because I really don't know off the top of my head, but that's certainly information I can get to you in terms of participation.
Yep. I think that's information they probably follow up with. Yeah.
Okay.
Lisa, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, my question was, and actually I defer to our in-house softball expert, Big Ten athlete, Councilmember Dana Watson. What's the gender split on using those fields? I mean, is it 50-50, or I've heard concern about this from the general public?
There's not a good gender split. Is that correct? Like you've heard there's not a good gender split?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard that that if not the programs, perhaps the sports are more canted toward baseball and boys than they are toward softball and girls. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So I will say from my memory that maybe sometimes, I don't know how the practice fields get chosen. I might have noticed something that way, but I also know like back when there was like adult softball, there might be a men's softball league, but not all the time a women's. It might be a co-ed. So you might see that slant in more male or not female representation. But yeah, that's my answer to it.
Okay. Mr. McCaffrey, does that reflect your experience?
So there's been concern with respect to practice facilities, as Councilmember Watson has said. But that's part of what we believe that's going to be addressed completely by having the fields completed at Patriarchs Park this year, and then the work done at the softball complex. So there's going to be more what I would call equity in terms of attendance and participation through the fact that similar facilities will be used pretty much at all times. As far as actual attendance, there tends to be more boys in the baseball program than there are girls in the softball program. But as everything else with youth recreation, there's cycles that we go through with respect to that.
Thank you.
Great. Dana? Sorry, Councilmember Watson.
Thanks. Yeah, I do love the sports. And so one curiosity was, like, with the men's soccer league being discontinued, do you see any possibilities of us benefiting in the future from a men's soccer league?
Soccer?
Yes.
Or softball?
Soccer.
Oh, the men's, the Lansing United men's. That was an interesting situation. Lansing United was formed, and we were the home field when Lansing United was formed, and the owner operator Jeremy Sampson wanted to use our fields, so we worked real closely with him on the men's the use of our field for the men's team. Then the men's team went into a higher league, and they started playing over at Cooley Law School Stadium. Team ended up folding. Mr. Sampson got out of the program, and they've got a different ownership group that's running the program, and they're practicing and playing their games out of Lansing.
Yeah. And another question was, do you see any future in like sand volleyball? Like, I saw the signs, for co-ed sand volleyball, and I played, beach volleyball too, but that field is like on Aurelius Road. It's just further out. So do you ever think about us benefiting from volleyball leagues or more volleyball sand courts, and similarly just pickleball?
If there was any interest in volleyball, we would certainly, as we do with pretty much any other interest group, start having conversations with them about what our facilities are, what we can do, what we would hope that they could do to help us have appropriate facilities. If you're a sand volleyball player, you likely know more than I do about there's a specific kind of sand that you really want to have when you're playing sand volleyball. Otherwise, you get really pretty well beat up. So it's a finer grain of sand that you want to make sure that if you go into the sand volleyball business, that you accommodate it correctly. But certainly work with any group that might express interest in having a conversation about how we can make facilities available and what have you.
So actually kind of a question maybe for Dana, maybe Tim as well. So I mean, would that be something that we would implement, like have our own league for, or is it more like an outside entity using our facilities? I guess Councilmember Watson, I'm asking kind of like if you're receiving feedback that there's interest in something like this, is it like an organization that wants to maybe utilize facilities, or it's just like general public that would be like, oh, it'd be cool if we had a league here,
I would say both. Like, I know we like playing at Nancy Moore, and so that's pickup games.
Right.
And we also like playing, Reno's North has a league.
Yeah.
But not us. And Lake Lansing used to have a league, but again, not anymore. So I'm just thinking if there was an interest in one way or the other that maybe the city could benefit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like leagues that were discontinued and those people are still interested in like, playing, I mean, that might be an opportunity for us. Maybe a follow-up conversation where yourself and Director McCaffrey, maybe, I don't know if there's contact info for some of the folks or some of the leagues that did discontinue. maybe that's an opportunity for us in the next few years. I don't know whether that's a trend going up or trend going down. I wouldn't imagine, and I'd probably rely on staff to give me that perspective. But I think that's generally how we see, trends. And unfortunately, lack of playing adult softball leads to, more of another sport. And then I'm sure 5 years down the road, we'll be having the same conversation, right? So.
Yeah, and as an aging woman, beach
Mhm.
volleyball and pickleball are lots gentler on our growing bodies than softball.
Well, I mean, if it counts for anything, one of the reasons why I asked was because I have a lot of people my age that I know that, because of everything that shut down, especially like working out in gyms, they just started doing pickup volleyball, and that was their way of getting exercise. So it's just interesting. Go ahead, Councilmember Babcock.
Well, first, I'd like to say that I was picked last for every team. My high school tennis coach never let me play a single
context.
single varsity game, and he's around town, and he said, Lisa, I feel bad about that. No, don't. I wouldn't have let me play either. But secondly, I have socks older than Councilmember Watson, so she's really not an aging woman. But my one concern is this, and that is that Parks and Recreation, and I think our department does this generally, reaches beyond simply sports, and also anything we have, sports, theater, it is equitable across age lines and across gender lines. So I'll be watching that. And I think traditionally we've done a good job of that generally, but that's my main issue. But don't expect to see me on any fields anytime soon. We just move budget. Councilmember Watson can be out there, that aging woman that she is.
No, I mean, I think what really was important about what Councilmember Watson says is just kind of always looking for those opportunities, and especially given the information that Councilmember Watson just said in regards to like leagues that actually shut down. Right, if we have some facilities that are available, like if it takes minimal effort on our part, and it might be another revenue stream, it might be good for everybody. But I don't know, and that's what kind of I was asking. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Tim, sorry.
Can I add?
Yeah.
There's a couple of initiatives that would be examples of that are kind of in the very early stages right now. But we've got a group that's quite interested in looking at a disc golf course, right? So one of the things that Jim Jennings on our staff has had a couple of meetings with a group to begin conversations around where that might be the best place to be and where we might sort of set up a disc golf course. At the end of my conversation here today, I was going to talk some more about emerging trends. So that was not an example I was going to use, but there's another one. But to illustrate the point that I think Councilmember Watson was making, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we notice there's opportunities and individuals call us and talk to us, and we can figure out ways to make a relationship work for the city as well as another organization or another group, we try to do that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. All right.
I have one more
Yep.
question, and this is about the BNA program.
Sure.
So correct me if I'm wrong, there has been scholarships available for families, maybe through CDBG funds, who couldn't afford, or that it was a tough pull to afford the BNA program. Is that correct?
Right. There's a couple of, yes, there has been. In years past, when there was a program, we have used community development block grant for scholarships for not just the BNA program, but for oftentimes for interscholastic sports that we offer at the middle school level. But yes, we have done that in the past. And I think we had a staff person that sent a communication to City Council on that as you're giving consideration to the community development block grant funds looking into the future. And perhaps, I don't know when you're going to be doing that. And the dollar amount has typically been not real significant that we've put towards it. But yes, we have had people that have done that through community development block grant. I would like to suggest also that Julianne Jennings works closely with, I guess I'm giving my age away kind of right now, It used to be the FIA program. It's something else right now. And sometimes when we have families that have indicated and told us that they have income qualification situations, we will work with that state program and try to help them get funds through that program also. It's not this, it's got a different name now.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, I'm absolutely thinking about the moms, especially if also it does go through that the younger kids are getting out later. Like I am familiar and have been one of those moms who had the benefit of being across the street from the elementary school, as in my children did, so that I could work and they would go pick up their brother. And so it'll be interesting to hear other ideas to support families who were relying on that older sibling or even a neighbor sibling to watch the younger children. So thank you, Tim, and thanks.
Yeah, and just so you know, Councilmember Watson, you know, especially in regards to thinking about not medicinal, but marijuana monies we're seeing from the state, you know, kind of sparked, I mean, that conversation of like, where are the other places that you know, where there's some folks that are below the line, right, of being able to afford, you know, certain services that might be necessities, right, and that's really where, you know, it comes in. And I do think that you know, that for that program for a lot of folks is a necessity, right? It's not an option. You need to have it. So very, very open to ideas. And if it's CDBG is the method for doing that, then great. And if it's other ideas, then I'm down for that too. So very, very happy to have that conversation.
Can I add one more
Yeah,
thing around
please,
that? I had
please,
almost
please.
forgotten. One of our newer commissioners on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, Sarah Reckow, has suggested one of the things we might want to consider a tiered fee schedule based on income. And
Oh, that sounds great.
so the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission is tuned into that. And I think specifically Sarah was suggesting the before and after school program, but that's perhaps something that could be used in a number of other of our activities too, as we look towards the future.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the fact that we are really pay to play, right? And that is an issue for a lot of folks. I think Dr. Ruckow's suggestion there, I'd be in full support. So any other council members' questions, anything like that over at this kind of introduction? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa. Sorry, Councilmember Babcock.
That's fine. I can't both raise my hand and unmute with the trackpad. I like the idea of a scaled payment because including everyone, and I like the idea of using marijuana dollars for the before and after, because that's really an absolute necessity for families, and it hits, as we know, the lower income families harder, and they often have less flexibility. But it's a great thing to get all the kids involved. So the more we can make that accessible, the better off we are. Thank you.
Great. All right, go ahead, Mr. McCaffrey.
I didn't answer the pickleball question, but I will in a minute when we get to capital projects. So the fiscal year 22 Parks Capital Fund, Capital Improvement Fund, where do the revenues come from in order for us to be able to have a capital improvements fund program for parks? Grants, Natural Resources Trust Fund is an example where we've been successful at getting grants, Council of the Arts and Cultural Affairs. And of course, now the Ingham County Trails and Parks millage has been phenomenal as far as being able to get some things done that we would have never been able to get done in terms of our trail system. And I'll talk about some of that in a minute. Fundraising campaigns, I referenced a minute ago the fundraising effort that the baseball club initiated. The dollar amount that we've received so far from the baseball club is in the $80,000 range. it's not directly from them, but it's a contribution that they facilitated. City Council, when we get an initiative that it gets real close sometimes and doesn't have the proper, the funds available, City Council will transfer some general fund revenue into projects. And then, of course, the income tax revenues, the Parks and Recreation and Facilities portion of the income tax revenues tend to be the sources of funds that we use for capital projects. The expenditures for fiscal year 2022 include the numbers that are in the blue column. And then the second column talks about the total project cost, because many of these projects that we end up doing will not get done in one fiscal year. Some will go certainly over 2 fiscal years, and some will perhaps even go over 3 or maybe even 4 fiscal years. And then we've identified the source of funds for all of the various projects. Now, I'm intending to go over each one of these projects very quickly and individually, but you can see in fiscal year 22, just under $1.3 million in projects that have been identified in the 22 budget. And once again, the revenue, you see where the revenue is coming from, where we're forecasting the use of income tax revenues. We're forecasting the Natural Resources Trust Fund, Natural Resources Trust Fund grants. And of course, we're suggesting that we're looking at Ingham County Trails and Parks millage for the total project cost of those, and not relying on funds other than the income tax generated through our general fund or something of that nature. Now, going over these projects individually, the Aquatic Center project is rapidly becoming, in order for us to reopen it, you can see some structural issues associated with that's an expansion joint in the gutter between the deck and the actual pool area, and where the water returns, the gutter is where the water gets returned for refiltration. But you can see that there's a significant amount of work structurally that needs to be done. And we're in the process of the engineering for that right now, and expect to be moving forward with the project, a contract award, hopefully in June and at the latest July, for the Aquatic Center project in fiscal year 2022. The Patriarch Park Pavilion project, this is a project that obviously we're using a combination of Natural Resources Trust Fund and income tax revenues on. You can see how the roof was so deteriorated that it caused significant challenges for us in the ceiling of the pavilion. Now, the roof is going to be replaced. It was an asphalt shingle roof that was probably installed about 50 years ago that had about a 20-year life. So it deteriorated significantly over the years and caused the wood ceiling boards to deteriorate. And we're actually finding out now that a substantial portion more of the ceiling boards are going to need to be replaced, but we're working our way through that. We're quite excited about the pavilion and restrooms project because we're having the opportunity to add some access improvements. As you can see, the staked area where it's been excavated, and there's going to be a large plaza area immediately north of the pavilion and south of the playground project. Also, the restrooms are going to have been completely gutted, and they're going to be all completely replaced. And in the restroom over by the tennis courts, if you will, there's going to be a solar array that's used to power the required electricity and what have you for that particular restroom. This is a look at the basketball court at Patriarch Park, and the basketball court is an example of what we're looking at in terms of our pickleball court replacement of tennis courts with pickleball courts and tennis court, and then also the basketball court removal and replacement at Patriarch Park. The condition of the existing tennis courts, here's some photos of the existing tennis courts. About 5 years ago, I think now, perhaps 6 years ago, the group that's very interested in pickleball raised a little bit of funds, and we did some work to try to fix the cracks. But the cracks in these courts require a complete replacement versus a renovation. And you can see the condition of the fence which surrounds the tennis courts. Now, this is where we received the $300,000 Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, getting to your question, Councilmember Watson. And we have 10 pickleball courts planned to go in at that location, and we'll have a basketball court, or excuse me, a tennis court that will be retained in that location. And we're also planning the replacement of the basketball courts at the location there at Patriarch Park. So there's some examples of where we're at with that. We'll be moving into the engineering and architectural and design phase of this project here in the next probably couple of months as we work our way through the summer months. And I would expect construction of this project in spring of 2022. This is the latest version of multiple versions of the corner of Lake Lansing Road at Tower Avenue.
It's an interesting intersection.
Yes, it's quite an interesting intersection. And there's been the Ingham County Parks Commission has been quite supportive of us putting the connections in to get folks from our recently renovated White Park over to Tower Avenue, which if you go up Tower Avenue, you can eventually connect with our softball complex. So that's been an interesting project as we've had the opportunity to work with the Ingham County Road Commission, and they've had different views on which way we should move forward with that project, but we're coming closer to arriving to a design that they're happy with and that they're prepared to approve. And that project could end up going into calendar year 2022 with all of the ongoing revisions that have been made with respect to that project.
And then I'm sorry to ask, I probably should know this, but there's sidewalk going from Tower Ave all the way up to that softball complex, correct?
Good question, Mayor Stevens. Not right now there isn't, but the County Trails and Parks Fund funded the Meridian Township request for pavement to go all the way from Lake Lansing Road up to the softball complex. Now, our section of trail at the south, from the south end of the softball complex at Tower Avenue to the trailhead that connects back with the Northern Tier Trail, that section of trail was completed during our White Park project.
Great. Okay, no, that's really awesome to hear. I think obviously, I praise the Northern Tier Trail and our trail system through and through. But I do think that connectivity right there, especially if we can get some signage, similar to what you have, even on the north side of the intersection on Lake Lansing, just directing, this is where you get to the softball complex stuff. It encourages folks to explore our community, and also encourages, I think, a better connectivity. So I love to hear that that's happening.
Yeah, that's been, like I said, it's been an interesting opportunity for us, and we're working our way through it.
Yeah.
Obviously the Colorado Drive connection to the Northern Tier Trail that connects the Bessemer neighborhood to the Northern Tier Trail is, I believe we're out to bid on that project at this point in time. And that'll be a contract award coming to City Council hopefully in July for perhaps as early as fall construction, but it could go into spring of 2022. And then the Riveria Drive connection that will connect the Tamarisk neighborhood to the Northern Tier Trail, same schedule as the Colorado Drive connection to the Northern Tier Trail. The other project that the County Trails and Parks Commission is supporting is sort of a realignment of some section of trail that, as a result of work, became a pretty tricky for us in terms of the proximity of the trail to the ditch and some safety concerns. So we've proposed, and the County Parks Commission has fully supported, you see, going from the bridge here at Abbey Road, at that connection, the Abbey Road Bridge, you continue to go up this red line, and then you get this turn where there's an existing trailhead, and then this white section right here will be all brand new trail. There'll be work done at this connection right here, and then this trail will be abandoned at that point in time. So that's work that we've got funds from the County Trails and Parks Millage to go ahead and move forward with that project also. That was pretty much what I had with respect to the capital projects programs. Is there any questions that you want answered before I go on to this next sort of conversation?
Yeah, I did have one, and I think that the Mayor Pro Tem does as well. I would just ask you, I think explanation of these projects is really, really well done, and obviously necessary, certainly necessary in many of these cases. In terms of the income tax dollars, obviously we've got a breakdown of like the cost request or the budget request for 2022, right? So what the request is from us this year, if we could just get maybe even a timeline on those projects, like when we're going to see funds utilized from MDNR or the Trails and Parks Millage, like over time, and then when we're going to see utilization of income tax funds for those projects, the planned out. And that does not obviously have to be right now, but maybe in a future communication to council would be great.
Right, we have that, and we can get you that information. Certainly.
I actually think that that's something you probably provided on these projects before too, when we first heard about them. But yeah, one place would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, we have.
Great.
That's fine. I mean, that's a very good question, and we can certainly get that information again. Great.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I had a couple of clarifying questions. Can you bump back to the previous slide for the reroute on the Northern Trail? I was just kind of trying to match that up with my mental map. Is that due to you said it was due to proximity to the drain? Is that the problem?
Due to proximity to the drain, it gets real close to the drain, and due to some work that's been done on the drain over the course of the last several years, there's some pretty steep slopes there. So concern around the safety.
Okay. And then following up on the side conversation, I know this is not your department, but are you aware of how Meridian sidewalk project is proceeding? They had to get easements from a lot of homeowners, and I was a little bit concerned that they would not have quite as easy a path as they thought they were going to have.
That's possible. The last conversation that I had, now it's been a while, of course, Wendy may have had more conversations with the staff over in Meridian Township, but some of those easements were assembled before they actually were awarded the project, is my understanding, although not all of them. Mm-hmm. We can get we can attempt to get an update on where they're at with that.
That's just my own curiosity, just because that connection would be so nice, especially getting school kids in across that improved crossing there. Sidewalks would be a really great benefit to that. I wanted to pass on a little bit of constituent feedback that I received. People are a little bit anxious about the aquatic center not opening this year, especially since there's a fair amount of work that needs to be put in up there. One of my neighbors mentioned that they would be interested in serving on a Friends of the Aquatic Center board, should we do such a thing if we needed to. But I just wanted to kind of bring forward again the idea of having not just the Aquatic Center, but a Friends of the Park nonprofit arm to channel some of our donations through. And we have different groups. If the Frisbee golf people wanted to do some fundraising and we had a nonprofit arm, it might help us get grants to match with their money, since our city money is matched with grants already. So just putting that back in the conversation.
Sure.
Go ahead, Councilmember Bacon.
Tim, I know that the funds are kind of fixed, and I'm looking at, you're probably impacted by the rising materials costs and everything that's going on. Are there any ways to kind of mitigate that? short-term, long-term. I'm not sure where this ends as far as this steady rise goes on materials.
Yeah, materials costs are going up. The projects that we've, like, for example, the pavilion project that's already been bid out and awarded, those materials costs were set pretty much before the significant increase that you're starting to see here in the last particularly month or so.
Yeah.
Although that we will have some change orders on that project, and we'll, I think, see some materials costs contributing to that, to additional expense with respect to that. I think perhaps Director Scott House in Public Works is seeing the same thing. And I think that we're going to continue to see some materials costs, which may end up increases, which may end up having us make some decisions in the long term with respect to how we move forward with some of these projects. And the other thing, as much as the materials cost, is with all of the supply chain challenges, you're seeing delivery taking a lot more time in terms of materials for projects and what have you also.
It's a big challenge. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions?
Move forward.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring up a couple of things that we see as emerging initiatives and trends. There was a couple of questions a little bit earlier with respect to equity and inclusiveness. And that's a conversation that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission has been working with staff on. And we've put together, in fact, a little bit of what we call a checklist in terms of how we advance parks projects when we start looking forward and into the future. So, and we're working with the Advisory Commission with respect to that. Also, with respect to how the staff is working, our staff in the Department of Parks and Recreation has embraced the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation. In fact, even before we were talking about it citywide, we started training for staff as long as 3 and 4 years ago. And the evaluations that were coming back were showing us some pretty significant interest in continuing to move with respect around that topic. And in fact, in Parks and Recreation, we have 3 of our lead staff who are have agreed to become part of the Equity Ambassadors program that DEI Administrator Elaine Hardy is going ahead and initiating. So the department has been embracing access and equity and inclusiveness. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. But we've embraced it to the point where we're starting, and we're hopefully going to be moving forward with respect to that. We're embracing environmental sustainability and sensitivity. We've had for a number of years a volunteer park stewardship program where we get a lot of the invasive species removed through a volunteer program. We're working closely with the Department of Public Works with respect to incorporating pollinator-friendly landscape beds when we do park renovations, and in fact, in some existing parks, we're doing some work around that. We're working on particularly conversations with Public Works Department, Kathy DeChambeau, in reducing some of the mowed lawn areas in parks on a balanced basis, because some folks like to see less mowed lawns and others like to see as much mowed lawn as you can possibly get. But we're trying to create a balance with respect to that. With respect to the built environments and environmental sustainability, anytime we do sort of replacement of equipment, HVAC equipment, chillers, boilers, any of that type of thing, we're making sure that we put high efficiency rated boilers and chillers and what have you in the buildings. So we're working with respect to trying to be more sustainable. The solar array that I mentioned in Patriarch Park is, a small example, but it's another example. Are we where we need to be? Absolutely not, but we're continuing to move in that direction. In reimagining our recreation, arts, enrichment, fitness, and wellness activities, some of this, of course, is brought on by the pandemic, but we're also viewing some of these challenges as opportunities for us. And we had the opportunity to show City Council what the Children's Theater and the nonprofit organization associated with the Children's Theater is moving forward with their virtual offerings. Another example of a cooperative programming effort is our tennis program was really suffering years ago in terms of participation and attendance. We developed a cooperative relationship with the Todd Martin tennis program, which has been very active in Lansing over the years. And I'm pleased to say that of the 3 sessions that we're offering with the Todd Martin tennis program at East Lansing High School this coming summer, 2 of them are already filled to capacity, and the 3rd one is likely to fill capacity in the very near future. We're developing a cooperative relationship with the youth lacrosse program, which is a new program for us. East Lansing Lacrosse President Tony Marino, who's quite a fitness and health expert I think he's at Eastern Michigan University on the faculty there, is active in the youth lacrosse program, and he's going to facilitate some clinics for us this summer for youth out at Hannah Community Center. We talked a little bit about the elimination of the softball program, so we don't need to get into that so much, but it has created opportunities for our youth program. With respect to community events and festivals and what have you, the pandemic forced us to look at virtual events versus in-person events. And for the art festival, we did a virtual event last year, and we're planning a in-person event in 2021 in August. The Jazz Festival, by the time we made the decision for that for 2021, it was determined the best way to go forward with that would be another virtual event, working closely with the this Jazz Festival Advisory Committee. And that was made, there's going to be 25 hours of jazz done virtually, and that was made possible by a cooperative relationship with the MSU School of Jazz Studies, and they're going to be using, or we're going to be using the new studio at Michigan State University Music Building for the implementation of the virtual jazz festival this summer. We're exploring new opportunities for community parks, for events and what have you. With the extended plaza out at Patriarch Park, we're looking at going ahead and doing some community events, perhaps different than what we've historically done. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission is encouraging staff to look at food trucks and food carts in community parks, and that's something that we're doing some exploration around. And then finally, with respect to funding, we've been quite resourceful at being able to obtain Natural Resources Trust Fund grants, Council of the Arts and Cultural Affairs grants, and what have you throughout the years. And those projects have been instrumental in allowing us to do reinvestment in the park system. Clearly, the county trails and parks millage is perhaps one of the most important funding sources that's ever come down with respect to parks and recreation in our county, and certainly it's helping the city of East Lansing out. And that support is there in East Lansing for the Trails and Parks millage. In March of 2020, just before the pandemic, when we had a vote to renew the Trails and Parks millage, 85% of those of us that voted in East Lansing voted for the renewal of the Trails and Parks millage. And 85% voting for any topic is almost unbelievable. I believe that there's opportunities for continued support, not just on the Trails project, but on some other funding opportunities as we look to the future. There still remains this, with all of these positive things, obviously the income tax has been very helpful. for us to move forward with projects. And then obviously there still remains a gap. We have at least $16 million worth of reinvestment that's going to need to go into the parks and recreation facilities sometime within the next 10 years. So clearly we're going to need to look at a fund source at some point here in the next couple of years to address what our funding is. So there are some positive things on that front, but there are some things that we need to look at much more closely. So with that, that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Great. Any final questions for Mr. McCaffrey?
Just one final comment. I started thinking some more. Ever talked about ping pong tables, like in the park or in the areas where people are just walking?
I can't remember exactly, but I think that there's been some ping pong tables which we've put out at events in the past. Say, for example, when we've had summer concerts and things like that, although I don't remember.
Okay.
But, table tennis is something that has always been popular, and it's perhaps something we could give certainly some thought to.
Thanks.
City Manager?
Yeah, if the questions are done, I'd like just an opportunity to take a moment to talk about Mr. McCaffrey. I will be brief, but I think people know that Mr. McCaffrey has announced his retirement from the city of East Lansing. He will be leaving us within a month, and being I might not get him back here at a meeting, and he just did a nice presentation, and you got to hear all the great things his department has been doing. I thought it was an appropriate time to thank him for his considerable service to this community. I got a chance to start working with Tim about 20 years ago. It's always been a pleasure to work with him. His professionalism, his level-headedness, his great commitment to public service, and also to parks and recreation and having those amenities available for community members, I think has been great for the community, and it's shown up in his daily job. He's also been a part of the community, being a part of the schools, helping to, putting children through the school system, being a part of East Lansing Rotary service projects. And he's also, of course, if we know the history of Parks and Rec in East Lansing, when he got here 20 years ago, had to help create a sort of department from the ground up. There wasn't really a department in existence. And now after 20 years, he leaves a very well-functioning department with a full array of services and facilities in place for the future. So I think he's came into something that was very sparse, and he has made it and built it into a great department. All during a time when there was tough budgets and not enough money to do things that he's wanted to do. Certainly we're in a better position now, but he's made things happen even with limited resources. And like he said, they've applied for grants and gotten money through fundraising and through some of our support to make a lot of things happen and to sort of multiply the dollars we've had and provided great value for our residents. So a big appreciation to Mr. McCaffrey, someone I consider a friend and professional colleague, and thank him for his service to the city of East Lansing. We may get to see him at a meeting or two in the future, but I wanted a chance to recognize his considerable service. I think at this point, probably a 40-year career in public service, pretty close to it, maybe 35. But thank you, Tim, for your service to the community. Been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, sir. I think that was very, very well said, and I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you for being with us here today, certainly, but thank you for all the work that you've done for the city and for all of those that you have impacted in an extremely positive way over a very long career. I am sure that many folks are extremely appreciative of all the work that you've done. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is communication from the audience. You will have 5 minutes to speak to the council if you called in. I will be cutting folks off at that 5-minute mark. Emily will let you in. She will ask you to unmute, and she'll give you a warning at about 30 seconds. And yeah, that is about it. Emily, is there anybody that wishes to speak to the council at this time?
Caller with a phone number ending in 963, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Alice Drager. I don't want to cut myself off, but I think you may have skipped the Q&A from the budget work session. Did you want to do that before communications from the audience?
You know what? I kind of did. So I can definitely do that. Sorry.
I'm happy to just wait till you're done with that. Thank you.
Great. My bad. More informational, but did anybody have any questions or follow-ups on the 5.2 Q&A information from the April 27th budget work session?
I just had a request.
Yep.
Today we got the police budget and I wanted to request that it be added to the Q&A information for other folks to see and for us to see.
Great.
And can it be added today? You know how we add things easily sometimes, like, can it be added today?
I think is that either today or tomorrow morning? Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, typically, do you mean to the budget questions or do you mean to the agenda?
Yeah, the Q&A information is my understanding that when I asked any questions that it would make it to the budget work session Q&As, whether it was via email or during our actual budget meetings. And so just kind of to that tune, it was something that I was asking for via emails, but I do want it added to the Q&A information.
Yep, so we intended to add it. So typically there's a lag time. So if you ask for something by, like, I think it was yesterday, or if we don't have time for answers, we usually put the questions when we get the answers. So I think if we ask for something on the weekend, it would be next Tuesday we'll have it posted because we'll have responses with it. But I can check with Jill to see if we can add it or if we should add it next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Either way we will.
and thank you. And my thinking was, I've been at council meetings where we've forgotten to add an attachment. And so then it seems like it's fairly quickly added. And because it's already there and because we're getting down to the wire, I think it would be beneficial for it to be added as soon as possible.
Yep. I support that. And I would request that, yeah, if we can add it to just as an attachment on this past meeting's agenda for this item 5.2, that it be done as soon as, time permits. Obviously, we're going to be here for a little bit, but great. Anybody have any other questions? All right, wonderful. My apologies for skipping through that. That was my bad. All right, now we are on communication from the audience. Emily, would you mind letting the caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 963, you're now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Alice Traeger. I want to thank the Parks and Rec Department for just an awesome system. And it's also an incredibly responsive system. Whenever I've called and said there's something dangerous, the response is incredibly quick. And it's something people frequently mention in terms of living in East Lansing and quality of life. I just had two suggestions. One is that Mark Grebner has made me aware as our county commissioner that East Lansing is kind of like Alaska in terms of tax systems when it comes to Parks and Rec. We put in much less money as taxpayers than we actually draw out as taxpayers. And the consequence of that is because our staff is so good at doing this, East Lansing, which is a fairly white population, actually benefits much more from things like the county parks and trail millage than other parts of the county, including parts that are less predominantly white than our section is. And so I think that's something that the council might want to think about. It's an interesting position to be in because it means East Lansing tremendously benefits. Like for every dollar I put into that, we're probably drawing something like $1.10 out of it. And it dramatically benefits us compared to other parts of the county. So when we talk about equity, it's a challenging thing to think about because East Lansing draws in many cases a lot more from taxes in the region than we put in, and it's because we have really good staff, but it also means we disproportionately benefit compared to other folks. So secondly, I had a question that I've been concerned about, partly following up on Ann Hill's considerations, which is continuity of resources and how we pay for things. So when we think about things like the Aquatic Center, what is the long-term plan for dealing with the fact that that's now an aged facility and it's going to be very expensive to upkeep in the future? Do we have a plan? Mr. McCaffrey talked about, I think he said $16 million in the next decade that the whole system needs in terms of money going back into it. I thought he was probably hinting at a millage. the previous council and the financial health team did not think it a good idea to try to do a Parks and Rec millage because frankly, there are greater needs in the city in terms of the pension system, in terms of the infrastructure, things like the sewer, in terms of things like the emergency systems. So that is why they did not go for renewal of the Parks and Trail millage. So it seems to me one good thing would be to try to map out what the cost of everything new that we buy is and how we're going to pay for it, because the income tax is not forever. The trails millage is not forever. It may be renewed. We can't guarantee that. So one thing to consider is to try to look at which facilities and which events pay for themselves and which draw money, and try to make some decisions based on that. For example, I believe the Children's Theater is actually a moneymaker for the city. However, I've heard, and from what I've looked at in terms of budgets, the church that we rent Hannah's Center to on Sundays is actually a money loser for the city. So I think we could ask the question of whether or not it makes sense to continue to do that rental if it is a money loser, or could we ask for the money to at least cover our expenses? I think it might make sense for things like the Aquatic Center to try to figure out, not just from year to year, but in terms of the whole cost, how much money are we willing to put into that facility? How much money are we willing to put into places like Hannah in terms of having to backstop what they really cost? Because again, I think there we could start looking carefully at which kinds of places make money, which lose money, and then we can add to that questions of equity as decisions are made. Thank you. And thanks to Mr. McCaffrey for his service.
Thank you. Emily, would you mind letting the next caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 534, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Ann Hill at 685 Buteo. Just a couple comments on some of the material presented tonight. Regarding softball capital expenditures, I don't have an issue with making that decision per se. However, having attended or watched the Parks and Rec meeting for the past year and a half or more, I've not heard discussion on this strategy. Also, I've not heard of discussion during council meetings or discussion over the past 2 years. So I'd like to know what the process is as Parks and Rec makes these decisions prior to implementation, and at what point is the community input injected into the process. Secondly, on costs of projects to be done this year, I'm concerned, as Councilmember Bacon alluded to earlier, I'm concerned about the costs of the projects as we do see rising costs for fuel, for lumber, and even labor. And we seem to be experiencing a shortage of labor due to COVID or families just moving out of the state as those states have opened up. Personally, I know of 6 different families that are in various stages of actually moving out of Michigan, and 3 of those from East Lansing, as they found jobs out of state, or their employer is allowing them to work remotely, which I think we're going to see some interesting impacts of the COVID. And their employers know they're going to be working out of state. Third, on budget change orders due to inflation. I know in the past we've had, whether it's road work or Parks and Rec, whatever, we've had various change orders come before council, and typically it's a non-event. I hope that as we go through the upcoming calendar year, that we're not just rubber stamping any budget overrun and just assuming that all this money is going to be available coming out of general funds, because our general fund bucket certainly has a lot that it's being asked to fund between pensions and just a whole array of things, the sewer, et cetera. So I do hope that we look very carefully as different projects are being asked to inject more funding. I do hope that we're being very cautious, especially through the balance of this calendar year. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ann. Emily, would you mind letting the next caller?
Those are all the callers we have on the line.
Great. All right. If nobody has anything else, we will adjourn this meeting, and we will be back in about a half an hour for our regular city council meeting scheduled at 7 p.m. It will be on the same live stream, and this will be the same Zoom call that we are in, council members. We will see everybody back in 30 minutes. had the things that I wanted to say during my council member comments all lined up, and I wrote them on sticky notes that I lost, and now I'm rewriting sticky notes. And I cannot remember like two of the things that I want to talk about.
Your organization is admirable.
Was it outdoor dining? Was it outdoor restaurant?
Yes, one of them was outdoor dining and outdoor restaurant.
Did you see the email I sent you on that?
Yeah, I did. And actually, we had a really good discussion at RHC that I should probably follow up with you on tomorrow.
Are you hinting that I should come up with something meaningful to say during council member comments?
No, it's all good. I like being the one breaking the trend, and it's all fun.
Jesse, you could always report out on the greetings tour mural.
That
yeah,
is,
that's right. Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Because I just agreed to speak at the dedication.
so it is. Whenever I meet with George too, I do the exact same thing. I have like these notes about what I want to bring up, and then I ended up calling him a minute after we end the call. I do that probably once every other time that we talk.
It's all juggling in the back of your mind. That's right.
No. Emily, let me know when we're good.
We're all
All righty. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to this East Lansing City Council regular meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll, keeping in mind our rules regarding virtual meetings?
Councilmember Babcock. Councilmember Bacon.
Present, attending virtually, East Lansing, Michigan, Clinton County.
Councilmember Watson.
Here, attending virtually, Ingham County, Michigan, East Lansing.
Councilmember Babcock.
Present, attending virtually for East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Mayor Pro Tem Greg.
I'm here attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Mayor Stevens.
Present attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for this?
I move approval of the agenda.
Great. Motion by Councilmember Babcock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Watson. Wonderful. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes from the regular council meeting on April 27th of 2021? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I move we approve the agenda, approve the minutes from the meeting of April 21. I'm sorry, Aaron.
The regular council meeting from April 27th is the one that we're referring to right now.
Thank you. I move we approve the minutes from the regular council meeting of April 27.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Great. And now we're moving on to the approval of the City Council special budget work session minutes from that same date, April 27th, 2021. Are there any changes to those minutes? All right, not seeing any. I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve special budget work session, April 27th, 2021.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great. We are on to communications. First is an announcement that written communications received by the council are posted on the online agenda packet under that little link that says written communication. And we are on to communication from the audience. I done this plug a couple of times, but if you do have written communication that you want to get to the full council, please send it to council@cityofeastlansing.com. We are always willing to listen and talk. So thank you very much. Communication from the audience, you will get called on. We have a number of public hearings tonight as well in relation to our budget and property tax rate, CDBG, a principal shopping district for the DMB, and a special use permit. If you do want to speak during those public hearings, but not necessarily the communications from the audience, you can just say pass. At this point, you will get another opportunity to speak at any of those public hearings. We'll be calling on everybody each time. Great. And you will have 5 minutes to speak to the full council. Emily, would you please let in the first caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 895, you are now permitted to address council.
Pass Tier 4 Agenda 4.4.
Caller with the phone number ending in 386, you are now permitted to address council.
Caller with the phone number ending in 386, you are unmuted, or you were unmuted. Feel free to speak to the council. I believe you just hit *6 on your phone. You should unmute again. If you don't want to speak to the council this time, you can just say pass.
I'll pass it this time.
Great. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 889, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Lisa Miller. I'm here for agenda item 4.4.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 977, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Gabriel Biber representing Haven House. I'm happy to wait and pass until the CDBG item.
Great.
Caller with the phone number ending in 293, you are now permitted to address council.
This is Jonquil Birchai. I'm the Executive Director of EVE, and I'm also going to pass until we talk about the CDBG money.
Great. Thank you.
Jessica Maury, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, I'll pass at this time. I'm here for agenda item 4.4.
Great. Thank you.
Those are all the callers we have in line.
All right, great. And I tried to make notes of when folks did want to speak on individual things. So if we do call on you again for some of the public hearings, I do apologize if it's a little bit tedious, but we would appreciate you just saying pass until the item. Great. Our next item is communications from the mayor and council members. I will start with Councilmember Bacon.
So once again, I'll pass.
Great. Councilmember Babcock.
Good evening. I have a few points. First, I believe we have one outstanding free leaf pickup. That's for the west side next Monday. The last one for the east side was yesterday. We live for free leaf pickup in my neighborhood, so I couldn't not mention that. The other is a little less pleasant, and every year I picture my mother cringing as I say this, but it's time to talk about dog poop. We have quite a problem with dog poop all over our neighborhood. I know there are a lot of great and responsible dog owners in East Lansing, and I have to confess I didn't grow up with dogs, and I wasn't too warm and fuzzy about dogs until I met the East Lansing dogs. Hello, Mandy and Isabella. However, those of us who don't have dogs, and even many people who do not enjoy picking up other dogs' poop. And my neighbor and I are up to over 50 shovelfuls, and it's getting old. And I know this is a problem citywide. Those of you who are having problems with dog owners not being responsible, you can buy the signs that are currently in the city park. The surplus signs are on sale at Hannah Center for $6 a pop. We have bought those in our neighborhood. However, if any dogs could read, it would be East Lansing dogs, but the dogs can't read, so we're really relying on the owners. So for the responsible owners, please pressure and shame your lackadaisical scofflaw fellow dog owners. And if you are a lackadaisical fellow scofflaw dog owner, it is not too late to turn the corner and start taking care of your pet's waste. I know you love your dog, just make sure your neighbor loves you and treat your neighbor as you would treat your dog. That's all until 6 months from now when we have the same conversation. Thank you.
That was extremely eloquent speech on dog poop. Probably the best one I've ever heard, if I'm being honest. Councilmember Watson.
I only had one comment to make, and it's a weird, just kind of request. I tuned into the study committee yesterday, as I do often, like it's a TV show or something. And because of their conversation and what they were talking about, I really thought that the written communication from Nathan Andrus would be of specific interest to them. And so I don't know if I can ask or just give a heads up that I think it would be to their benefit to read that story as they continue to discuss what should be in their recommendations and what shouldn't be and why it shouldn't be. And so that's all. That's my comment.
Yeah, if you want to forward that communication along to the city manager and have that instructed to be sent out to the study committee, I'm sure that we can get that done. Absolutely.
You can do that and send it to Diane. Also, I'll forward to Diane, the secretary for the commission, and she will get it out to that group for you.
Thank you. What's Diane's last name?
Schaefer.
Okay.
But you send it to me and I'll send it on to her. So
Okay.
No problem. We'll take care of it.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I very much enjoyed seeing downtown a little bit busier than usual with all of our commencements over the last few weekends. There was lots of hatted and gowned students fledging out of our nest and into the world, which was delightful to see. And it was nice to see our businesses a little bit busier than usual. The mayor and I sat in our RHC meeting this afternoon, our Responsible Hospitality Commission, our council. Anyway, that is, it's an interesting group. I don't know if other groups like this exist in other communities, but I just, I'm impressed with the level of cooperation between our downtown restaurants. Most of these are alcohol serving establishments, hence the responsible hospitality. But I really, it's really nice for me to see our business. I think of our businesses as residents. I don't know. I think of them as like business residents as opposed to like, we have student residents, we have permanent residents, we have business residents. I don't know. That's just how it is in my mind. But I love to see the collaboration happening in that group and the good partnerships happening. So I just, shout out to them, and also an acknowledgement that they've had a very, very difficult year. Our restaurant industry is definitely not out of the woods yet. They've got a lot of lost revenue. And so just that continual, also apologize, I'm not dying, continual push to, takeout if you're not comfortable eating inside. We've got many nice picnic tables installed downtown because of our placemaking initiatives there, and the weather is finally starting to cooperate. So if you're not comfortable yet dining inside, you can certainly dine outside. I also wanted to call everybody's attention to a mural dedication that's happening next week on the 20th. This is a project that's been working its way through the Arts Commission for, gosh, like 3 years now, maybe.
Yep, since I was liaison and you were commissioner.
Yes.
I think.
Before I was elected, back when I was not a lowly arts commissioner. But it's a little bit different from other art installations in East Lansing. It's definitely more of a pop art installation. It's really kind of calculated to engage people in kind of a selfie mural appreciation, which is, I think, definitely a function of art, right? Art should be enjoyable. It should make you smile when you see it. Sometimes art makes you think and not smile, but this is art that makes you smile. And it includes us in an interesting network of public murals that have been installed by the same group of artists all over America. We are the first in Michigan, I believe, unless it took too long to get through the Arts Commission. I know there's one going in Jackson later, but I'm pretty sure we're going to beat them. So not that I'm competitive. And it was kind of a fun, we did do some stakeholder collaboration in terms of it's like a classic greeting card, greetings from East Lansing, and the images inside the letters were kind of collaboratively decided by different groups, including the Arts Commission, but also people from MSU and the surrounding community. So I'm excited that it's happening, excited that it's finally going to be up, excited to be part of this network of public murals. And if you want to come and find out more about it, you can come down. It's actually going on the side of not the Roadhouse restaurant itself, but the Roadhouse pub that is behind the restaurant was one of the only walls large enough in our town to put it on. So that's where it will be. And we will be dedicating the beginning of that project on May 20th at 2 p.m. George and I will be there. Maybe you will be there. And excited to get that started. I think that's really all I've got for today. I'll remember something later that I meant to say, but for now.
Alrighty, so I guess that's on to me. We do have an item that's on our consent agenda tonight that I'm sure will receive some attention, and that is item 3.6. That is the resolution extending the state of emergency proclamation within the city of East Lansing, but ending the mask requirement downtown. And now I'm going to say this kind of in the hypothetical sense because, of course, it hasn't passed yet. But if this does pass, that will mean that as of tomorrow at 12:01 a.m., masks will no longer be required in the outdoor areas of our downtown. And there are a few reasons behind us doing this that I kind of wanted to run through. So one is a little bit more technical timing. I think we really wanted to get through graduation. It's a pretty significant event. It has a lot of people in our city visiting from out of our city, a lot of traveling. The mask requirement on campus was still in place, and they were really having to view graduation as a kind of a different event than they have in the past. But they still wanted to try to host something in a safe way. And so I think the consistency of having, especially folks have the requirement on campus and off campus in an environment where really we're trying to be as safe as possible was necessary. And with the new CDC guidelines coming out, MDHHS guidelines and benchmarks put out there, and Michigan reaching 55% vaccination, I think I'm County very, very closely behind. We decided that this would be the right path going forward, at least for the time being. COVID has been an incredibly difficult challenge for all of us to face, especially as leaders in municipal government. We're constantly adapting and adjusting to what the current trends are. When you have a fluctuation in the numbers, you have to adjust. When you have a rise or a fall, you have to adjust. And unfortunately, that's led to business closures. That's led to people losing jobs. That's led to a lot of really difficult things, and a lot of families, unfortunately, without a loved one after the fact. And it's been difficult for us. And I know that we've received a little bit of scrutiny on having this in place over the past few months. But the point of this, of course, with every regulation that we put in place, was to make sure that the folks in our community were as safe as possible. And that hopefully that purpose was at least in part accomplished. But at this point, as we move into the summer, as we move into more folks in our community being vaccinated, and as we move to really push folks to support our businesses during what usually is a lull, but I'm hoping won't be this summer, in terms of folks in the downtown, we decided that this was the right choice to go forward with. And we wanted to really do it in conjunction with MSU, who announced their outdoor mask requirement ending yesterday. And so if this does pass council tonight, that is what this will mean. That's kind of the reason behind it. We're still going to be vigilant, and I cannot stress this enough, but if you are somebody that is not fully vaccinated yet, you should still be wearing a mask in large groups of people or in groups of people that are not part of your household. And so that applies if you are, watching a summer concert, or you're in an area where you have people around you that might be, fully vaccinated. But if you're not, it's really, really important that you still follow that guidance, even if there isn't a local order in place. And again, this serves to show that when folks get the vaccination, we will start to reach these benchmarks, and we will start to get back to that sense of normalcy that we all want to see. And so I do encourage folks to reach out to Sparrow or Ingham County Health. They have walk-in appointments. You can make an appointment online. We have transportation that is free at this point, provided by Track County Regional Planning Commission, and CATA, and Eaton County Transportation, and Clinton County Transportation. All of these things to make sure that vaccines are accessible for everyone. So please do go get the vaccine. And when you are fully vaccinated, things are going to be a little bit better than previous. I got both of my vaccines, and luckily my second shot last week. And I was very, very proud to do so. And I really hope that this is the first sign of us returning to a little bit of normal in the city of East Lansing. That being said, masks are still required inside the establishments and then at large community events. So that includes things like the farmers market, or if we were to have another event in the city of East Lansing that had a lot of high traffic, we might make a decision at that point to require masks. But again, in the downtown, if this passes tonight, you will not be required to wear a mask outdoors. Our next item that I wanted to talk about, go ahead, Councilmember Bacon, did you have something?
Just when you're done, can I add one thing? I just thought of something.
Great. All right. I will continue and then head to you. The struggles that are going on in India right now, the East Lansing community has certainly come together. I've seen a number of community groups put forward fundraisers to help nonprofits in the area, and also folks that are on the ground in that situation. One that I'll point folks to, and of course there are many, is a group of graduate students at MSU that is attempting to raise $50,000 for a few nonprofits that have been vetted through them, that will hopefully support some of the efforts and the hardship that is going on in India. You can check out their link in their article in LSJ. All you have to do is just look up graduate students India, and you should be able to find it. I'm not going to read the link off here because it's about 700 characters. But I do encourage folks to participate in that. And the next thing is somewhat related to my first item, which is just talking about downtown and hopefully what we want to see out of this summer. Last year, we had a very turbulent summer. What was hopefully going to be the reintroduction of downtown to many folks in the community, what is the new East Lansing, I would even say, was halted by a virus that took so many. And now as we are moving forward, as vaccination rates increase, as we are still pushing programming to support businesses, I am excited to see a lot of the programming that is happening, and I hope it expands even further. We still have in place our rules and policies regarding the timeline and institution of outdoor seating and outdoor dining, and I hope that restaurants will take advantage of that. It is an easy process. Our staff is willing to work with you to make sure that that process goes smoothly if it would be allowed. And that includes into the public right of way, as long as there's still ADA accessibility requirements that are thought through. So if you have an area in a restaurant where outdoor seating might be, useful to you, and you think that that could be something that is possible, reach out to our staff. It'd be a wonderful thing to see a little bit more outdoor area and a little bit more utilization of that space. And I'm very, very encouraged by some of the feedback that we got at RHC earlier today. And I would like to see that continue into the future. As we move into the summer, I want to see as much as we can to support our businesses, but also this programming is not just COVID related. I want to see this next summer, the summer after that, and the summer after that. Because East Lansing downtown certainly has changed over the past few years, but I think it's changed for the better. And I think that we can reintroduce the downtown to those folks that might not have been down here in a few years. So that's what I got. I will hand it over to Councilmember Bacon.
Just wanted to place a reminder as we see different levels of construction and special projects going on the roads as you're rerouting through the neighborhoods and different communities to slow down and to be safe, allow for some extra time. I know sometimes you're arriving and different construction projects are beginning in your path when you leave your home and things like that. Please allow extra time. It's happened to me as well. To get from point A to point B, as that it's summer season, kids are getting out of school. There's a lot more movement and activities going up. And I see it in my own neighborhood, in the Hawks Nest neighborhood, speeds are going up a lot at the same time where kids are kind of getting loose. So just for the sake of safety and definitely during this construction season, as we ramp up, slow down and just allow a little bit of extra time even to cross town here locally. It might save a life. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good point. Thank you, sir. All right. Nobody has anything else. I will move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Lahanas.
Thank you, Mayor. Two items. One is that we have an item coming up on the consent agenda for the termination of an agreement for assessing services with Meridian Township for council to consider. We're recommending the termination because at this point, the complexity of the position in terms of administering both communities has become really undoable for one person. Mr. Dave Lee, I think everyone knows, is our assessor. He's a high credentialed individual, level 4 assessor, and has really done a great job since 2010 of administering both communities as an assessor. This came at a time in 2010 when the city and a lot of communities were under extreme financial pressure. And this was an opportunity to collaborate, to share his expertise with a neighboring community and partner for the benefit of both communities. He's done that, more than you could ask for in terms of his service over the last 11 years. At this point, it's the judgment of the finance director and myself that position has become too difficult and too much work for one individual to do. And that's why we're asking to terminate the agreement at this point. Very happy to say that Mr. Lee will be staying with the city of East Lansing full time. I also want to thank Meridian Township for their partnership. They're a great partner with the city of East Lansing in terms of service provision and partnering with us to make that happen to the benefit of both communities. But really to thank Dave for his exceptional service. Like I said, he's continuing with the city, but that really was a tremendous lift to ask of an employee. And he did it with no complaint, a great attitude, hard work, and exceptional expertise. So thank you to Dave for that. And of course, council's considering that in a bit. The second thing I want to do is announce a new hire. We have Peter Menser, who has joined us as our planning and zoning administrator. So he has spent the last 14 years managing development projects and drafting policy for Meridian Township. He also has experience working for the Kalamazoo Downtown Development Authority, making maps, tracking occupancy, and helping promote downtown businesses and events. He's a graduate of Western Michigan University and holds a bachelor's degree in urban and regional planning and a master's degree in public administration. He's been with us for several weeks now, and this is the first time council will get to hear from him. You will have two items from Peter later in the agenda. I just wanted to give an opportunity to say welcome to Peter and introduce him to you. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, sir. All righty. Our next item on the agenda is the city attorney's report. Mr. Homier.
Thank you. I just want to quickly address item 3.6 on the consent agenda. This is the extension of the local declaration of a state of emergency. And I want to make it clear that why we've extended it through December 31st, 2021. We have a lot of municipal clients who have done a similar thing. And that's really in order to give the city council flexibility in continuing to hold virtual meetings, because we're still to some degree limited on capacity for in-person attendance. Even though the capacity limitations have been lifted for public meetings, there's still a requirement for social distancing. And because of that, it could seriously cut down on the number of participants that are able to attend in person at a meeting. And so this matches the amendments that were made to the Open Meetings Act, extending it through December 31st, 2021. That doesn't necessarily mean that the City Council has to continue holding virtual meetings through the end of December, only that it gives you flexibility to do so.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
All righty. We'll move on now to our consent agenda. Mr. Lahanas.
Thank you. We have the following items on the consent agenda for council's consideration. Item 3.1, approve a contract with Control Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $35,392 for the installation of a bipolar ionization air purification system in East Lansing City Hall. Authorize the city manager to sign and also approve a contingency of $5,000 for the project. Item 3.2, approve a resolution to support the enactment of the 8-bill package of proposed changes to Part 115 that will update Michigan's solid waste laws. Item 3.3, approve a resolution authorizing Derek Burcham to purchase 5 years of service credit from Municipal Employees Retirement System, MERS. Item 3.4, approve the termination of the intergovernmental agreement for assessing services with Meridian Township and authorize the city manager to provide notice of such in accordance with the agreement. Item 3.5, approve a contract with PK Contracting for the fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022 as needed pavement markings and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 3.6, approve policy resolution 2021-9, a resolution extending the state of emergency proclamation in the city of East Lansing. Those are all the items on the consent agenda for council's consideration.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Would anybody like any item taken off the consent agenda, put onto the business? All right, not seeing any, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Watson, motion by Councilmember Bacon. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great. Councilmember Babcock, was that a vote in the affirmative?
That was a technology delayed I vote. Thank you.
All right, great. All right, we are on to our first public hearing of the evening. The first public hearing is the consideration of the preliminary fiscal year 2022 budget and property tax rate. We will not be passing this tonight. This is the first public hearing that we will have on this item. Then we will have another one on May 25th. Of course, we've been talking about the budget for about a month and a half now. And so everybody should be fairly versed, but I did want to give that caveat now. Director Feldposh, did you have anything that you wanted to say before we open the public hearing?
I'll just add, that we've been working on this since early April. So the preliminary budget document was published April 9th, held 4 budget work sessions to date. And we do have another one planned for next week, May 18th. On May 25th, we will ask council to adopt the fiscal year 22 budget and fee schedule. And that comes in a resolution format. It's not the actual budget document that you've seen thus far, right? It's a resolution. It will list the appropriations, the revenue sources, as well as the tax rate and all the fees. I can attach that to next week's agenda for your review and discussion if you would like. And it would just be in draft format. And then if you guys have any changes you would want, we can implement those prior to the May 25th meeting. But before you tonight is the public hearing on the tax rate and the preliminary budget. And so just a reminder to everybody that the tax rates are recommended to stay the same as they are currently. And that's with operating at 12.5362, solid waste at 1.825, the library at 1.994, for a total millage rate of 16.3552. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, and I will add on to you adding on to me and just state for the rest of council that next week when we have our meeting and we talk about some of the issues still in the budget, whether that's in the special work session or just at the discussion meeting, it is a great opportunity at that point that if you are looking to make changes to the budget, that given the fact that we will be most likely passing something, on May 25th, that next week's meeting is a really good opportunity to gauge council on support of issues and also get staff expertise so they might be able to be prepared for the May 25th meeting. Of course, any council member is free to make amendments or make judgments on that May 25th meeting. Just a suggestion that we've been talking about many items throughout the past month and a half, and that next meeting might be a good place to try and solidify some of those before we pass things, or just to go ahead and approve what we have right now. Either way works, but I did want to put that out there. Great. So I will open up the public hearing at this point. I know we have a number of members in the public that have called in that are here for certain items. We may still call on you just because we're calling from numbers. And again, just say pass if you're not here for this item. You'll have 5 minutes to speak to the full council. We'll give you a 30-second warning before, and I'll be cutting folks off at 5 minutes. Emily. Emily, you with us?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
You're muted.
Okay, so caller with the phone number ending in 895, you are now permitted to address council.
Pass here for 4.4.
Great.
Caller with the phone number ending in 375, you're now permitted to address council.
Good evening. This is Carl Bonadono from Tri-County Office on Aging. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sweet. So my role at the agency is nutrition director, and TCOA would like to thank the city of East Lansing for the years of support it's provided over the years, and would like to request support of the $10,000 grant request for the CDBG grant. Tri-County Office on Aging has been serving seniors in Clinton, Eaton, and Ingham County since 1974. Our mission is to promote and preserve the independence and dignity of the aging population. The nutrition program, including Meals on Wheels, promotes independence by providing healthy, well-balanced meals to those who qualify. And we offer many, many other programs to support the agency's mission. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, meals have been provided with minimal disruption. We've transitioned to a system of weekly delivery of meals to seniors in their homes and initiated a contactless pickup site to serve those who have participated in our Congress program in the past. Our agency has had to physically be closed to the public. However, services are continuing to be provided both remotely and virtually. Between April 1st, 2020 and March 30th, 2021, our nutrition program has served 55 seniors within the city limits, a total of 9,321 meals. That's to the homebound seniors. We have 4 pickup sites within East Lansing, Hannah Community Center. We did have one at Bailey Park. My apologies. We now have 3. We had 4. We also do meal distributions at East Glen Apartments and Tower Gardens. And through those, we served 82 seniors, a total of 5,716 meals at those pickup locations. So that $10,000 would go toward providing 2,000 of those meals at our current $5 per meal rate. But throughout the 3 counties and fiscal year 2020, the nutrition program provided 653,000 meals. We did distributions of quarantine boxes. Those were something that we were awarded through the state. It's a box that contains 21 meals that are comprised of shelf-stable items to kind of supplement what seniors were getting through other resources in the community. And we also worked to do USDA produce box distribution to 129 clients per week from the time frame of June through September 2020. During a normal course of the year, we provide hot home delivered meals Monday through Friday, but because of safety reasons related to the pandemic, we haven't been able to do that. And at that time, one of the benefits associated with the program was kind of checking in on seniors to make sure that they're okay. To pivot to replace that, we have both staff and volunteers making routine friendly reassurance calls to clients who are open to the opportunity. That gives them someone to connect with to help combat some of the social isolation that people are experiencing. We've been working on a number of different other projects as well, hoping to encourage people to participate in getting vaccinated. And I myself, I'm happy to report, are fully vaccinated. And so that is what I would like to share. TCUA, again, really appreciates the opportunity and support of the city of East Lansing.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for being with us and for all of the work that your organization does. Great. Emily, would you mind letting in the next caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 386, you are now permitted to address council.
I'll pass.
Okay.
Caller with the phone number ending in 646, you are now permitted to address council.
Caller ending with 646, we are doing a public hearing on the budget and tax rate at the moment. If you do want to speak to that issue specifically, please go ahead and hit *6 on your phone. You can feel free to speak to the council for 5 minutes. I believe you are unmuted. If you don't wish to speak on this item, you can feel free to just say pass.
Pass. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Caller with the phone number ending in 963 are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Alice Traeger. A couple of things. One, I've been surprised at how long Mr. Lee has managed to do service for both City of East Lansing and Meridian Township. It is a huge job, and I just wanted to thank him for always being incredibly responsive in the most detailed and helpful fashion whenever we've had reader questions about assessments and how the system works. It's just amazing to have a tax assessor who is so knowledgeable, but also just so willing to help us understand how it all works. And we've relied on him so many times, as with Director Feldtosh, just to help people understand how the money works. And the two of them are just unbelievable in terms of helping us explain things and helping us understand things. So it's just tremendous. At the last meeting, the one earlier this evening, Councilmember Watson had asked about the police budget. And I know that this council has been talking a lot about the question of police funding. So I just wanted to know when we're going to be provided that information, because it seems like it would be something of a lot of interest to the public given the discussions that have been going on. And finally, just noting again the problematic calendar cycle, which perhaps feels inevitable, but I don't think it has to be, of you all discussing discussing the budget and voting on the budget, and then hearing about the pensions, which is your largest debt by far, immediately afterwards. Pretty much all of the other debt, we have various kinds of plans for paying, except for sort of the evergreen debt, which continues to be a problem. But the pensions and OPEB are a giant unfunded liability. And what happens every year is that the council looks at the budget and then a month later realizes what they're facing. And so I just find this problematic because then it's about another year until you discuss the budget again. And by then, the startling numbers that you will see in June will have sort of faded into the memory in some degree. So it's not the best way to do things. When I'm doing my budget for Eli or I'm doing my budget for my home, I always take into account the reality of what we're facing in terms of costs before I try to figure out how spending is going to work. And I know Mr. Lohanis will tell you there's a plan, but there isn't a clear plan for paying off what is over $100 million in unfunded liability. We have the income tax and it's helping, but it doesn't get us to the finish line by any means. And as we offer more pensions to more workers, we have the potential to keep ballooning the income. Also with the MERS adjustment in the investment expectation from 7.75 to 7.35, we know that our unfunded liability is going to go up. We also know that fortunately our retirees are living longer, but that does mean increased costs for us, and that's going to get us a hit. So it's almost like they're holding off on telling you just how ugly the news is before you pass the budget. And I think that if you were to do this in the reverse order and be able to see the pensions and really understand the pensions before you pass the budget, you would be yanking every dollar you possibly could out of the budget to try to deal with the pension problem, which frankly is what a lot of past councils did. A lot of past councils worked very hard to yank every dollar they possibly could to try to deal with that problem, because as that problem grows, it becomes more and more uncertain in terms of how we're going to deal with the obligations we've made to our workers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have just one more thing, if I could. I would appreciate if Mr. Lohanis does not refer to me as Mrs. Drager. That is not my married name. I do not have a married name. My mother raised me not to have one because she resented the idea of her being understood to be a product of her husband. So if he wants to address me as Dr. Drager, that's fine, although I always joke that I only make my parents call me doctor, but I am not a Mrs. Thank you.
Okay. Director Feldposh, would you mind kind of talking about timeline of pension presentation, why it's important to have the information in June, and then talk a little bit about what we're doing, maybe even briefly this year in terms of supplemental payments and how much we're actually putting in?
Sure. So MERS gives us our annual valuation each June. So it's as of December 31st. And it's just the timeline that they go through to prepare the valuation and present it to the city. We, of course, have our valuation as of 2019. All of that information is presented as of December 2019. All of that information is presented in the fiscal year 20 audit. So there's a schedule in there showing both the pension and the OPEB, and it shows the history of the progress, I suppose, or a historical view. In regards to the budget this year, well, for fiscal year 21, we will, I think it's close over $6 million that we will be adding as supplemental payments into the pension plan. And then for fiscal year 22, it's about $5.1 million that will go in as supplemental pension payments between the income tax and the general fund.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yep.
I will also add, we did add the police budget document that was given to council via email that has been added to the agenda.
For the previous budget work session?
Yes, to the May 11th budget work session under the Q&A.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'd also like to jump in quickly. I'd also like to note that obviously staff has been recommending and moving this forward with council support for years now. I think we started making our first supplemental pension payments probably 5 years ago. So we're certainly not new to this. This is a long-term process, and we've been at it for a bit here. We're not coming to the game late and just saying we've got to start doing this. Let's wake up. We've been working on this for, like I said, 5 years now, and we've been making payments. We certainly can share the chart again, showing all the supplemental payments we've made over years, but we've been working on this and it's a work in progress. So thank you.
Thanks. Emily, would you mind letting us caller?
Caller with a phone number ending in 889, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, I'm here for agenda item 4.4. I'll pass.
Okay.
Caller with the phone number ending in 977, you are now permitted to address council.
I believe they're here for the CDBG item. That's the next item.
Yes, please. I'll pass until 4.2. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 293, you're now permitted to address council.
Hi, I'm also here for the CDBG money, so I will pass.
Great.
Jessica Maury, you're now permitted to address council.
I will pass at this time.
All right.
Those are all the callers on the line.
Great. I have a question for the city attorney. Mr. Homier, I've been trying to take notes of the folks that have been indicated what item they would wish to speak on. Are we still required to call on each person for each of these public hearings?
No, actually, you're only required to open it up for a public hearing, and then anybody who wants to talk can either raise their hand or denote. I think the way you do it is fine. I don't have any problem with that. But, you know, if you were in an in-person meeting, it would be held the same way, and that is people who want to talk have the opportunity to speak.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna attempt to work with Emily on the fly on some of the folks that had said they were here for item 4.4. I have 3 numbers at this point. The number ending in 895, 889, and Jessica Maury had all indicated that they would like to speak at item 4.4. And then another couple of callers that had said they'd like to speak at item 4.2, but that's the next one. And then the other folks that indicate, we'll try to make sure that you're selected for the right area, but we do want to make sure that we're still cognizant of folks that have called in, and we don't want to miss anybody. So Zoom meetings, right? All right. Did anybody have anything else on this item? This again was just a public hearing. We're not passing anything tonight. Great. On to our next item, which is 4.2, consideration of the CDBG fiscal year 22 budget. I will hand this over to Amy Schlichter-Schmidt.
Good evening, City Council. So this evening you are holding the second of 2 public hearings as part of your citizen participation process for the annual evaluation of the allocation of Community Development Block Grant or CDBG funds. As City Council is aware at this point, we are anticipating receiving $493,938 from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for fiscal year 22. Within your packet materials, you do have the staff recommended allocations at this time. This evening, you will not be making a final decision regarding the budget. You will actually consider and take a vote of possible approval on May 25th. So this evening, you are just here to consider any comments that are provided during the public hearing. And I'm happy to answer any questions persons might have right now, or we could certainly wait until after comments are received.
Did any member of council have any questions for Amy Schlichter-Schmidt while she's here? Great. Then I will open up the public hearing at this point to those that are interested in speaking on the item. Emily?
Caller with the phone number ending in 375, you're now permitted to address council.
Good evening. I apologize. It's Carl Bonadono from Tri-County Office on Aging. I jumped the gun.
I didn't want to stop
sharing.
your flow, so.
I am really sorry about that. So I guess that was all I had to share. Is that okay?
Yep, that's all good. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 386, you are now permitted to address council.
I'll pass it, and I'm here for item number 4.4.
All right, understood. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 646, you are now permitted to address council.
Thank you. This is Raleigh Van Fossen. I'm the Executive Director of Capital Area Housing Partnership. Hopefully a familiar face to members of council. So thank you, Mayor Stevenson, and staff and council for having the public hearing tonight. The Housing Partnership has presented a few times over the past few months on a variety of some of the program efforts that we've been supportive and partnered with the planning and development team and the rest of the city staff. And I come tonight just to share that we appreciate the continued support in next year's CDBG budget for the continuation of the program efforts we've been working at on the homeowner rehabilitation side, as well as the down payment assistance. Certainly from the variety of presentations we've shared with council, the housing study and so forth, we're well aware of the current housing market we face across the mid-Michigan community and across the state and the nation, where housing supply is limited. And when we consider our low to moderate income households, our vulnerable population, those stresses become ever more apparent. And so programs like CDBG are fortunate for a community like East Lansing to have and distribute, because it gives an opportunity to those vulnerable families to have a leg up in rehabilitating their home and doing some of the efforts that we ask of as a community participant, as a neighbor, and so forth. So I appreciate the support and will be available if there's questions or comments regarding our proposal tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? We're not seeing any. Emily, would you mind letting us caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 646, you are now permitted to address council.
Caller ending in 646. If you just hit *6 and unmute, you can speak to the council on this item for up to 5 minutes. If you don't wish to speak on the item, you can just say pass and maybe even tell us what item you are looking to speak on.
I think I just spoke. This is Raleigh. My number ends in 64.
Just kidding.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Okay, caller with the phone number ending in 963, you're now permitted to address council.
Give me 1 second, Emily. Councilmember Watson, did you have something that?
Mayor Stevens, I just had a question. So it was phrased that we were just listening, but then after the previous caller, you asked if we had any questions. So can I ask questions, or am I just listening to what the organizations are saying?
My apologies. I did that just because the caller had indicated that if they had any questions, they could ask, and maybe even a previous caller did, and I spaced by it. Generally, we were just listening, and you're always free to give a response, and feel free when callers do make comment. Feel free to always chime in and say, can I ask a question or can I ask a follow-up? That is always allowed, and I apologize for not saying it directly. That's on me.
Thank you.
Yep. Caller ending in 963, you can unmute. Feel free to speak to council on this item.
Pass, thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 977, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, it's Gabriel Biber. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. Yeah, Gabriel Biber, Executive Director of Haven House, East Lansing resident. Very pleased to be a part of the community and very enthusiastic about our leadership here on council. So tonight, I'm just really, again, representing Haven House to indicate our gratitude for the inclusion in the CDBG proposed budget. As Carl indicated earlier, related to Tri-County Office on Aging, pivoting to continue to serve those in need with the new considerations of the pandemic has been a huge part of the last year for us. But by and large, we are continuing to do what we've always been known for, and that's emergency homeless shelter for families. So in a typical year, we would be providing emergency shelter for between 100 and 150 families each year. Between October 1st of 2019 and September 30th of 2020, we ended up serving 92 families with emergency shelter, many of them staying longer in shelter than we would typically have seen in the past. The other big change for us is that our emergency shelter services over the past year have largely been provided off-site through partnerships with local hotels, but we're still maintaining our intensive case management with those families in shelter. And what a lot of you may know, but some of you may not, is an increasing part of what we do is homelessness prevention, both to keep families from becoming homeless in the first place and preventing returns to homelessness. So we've expanded what we call our Partners in Progress program. And that program has typically worked with families after a stay in shelter to ensure long-term stability, and it still does that. But now we are also providing related services to families who may be trying to maintain their housing or obtain new housing even without coming into shelter. So that is part of a community-wide effort to practice coordinated services and shelter diversion. And we really couldn't do what we do without the collaboration of other organizations, including Tri-County Office on Aging, certainly EVE and the other shelters, whether specifically homeless shelters or domestic violence assistance, including Safe Place, absolutely, including Capital Area Housing Partnership. And many of us as agencies serving the community work together as part of the Capital Region Housing Collaborative. And so we are very engaged with the East Lansing community. It's true that we serve families, those are moms, dads, and kids, and that includes any family composition, be it a single dad with kids, maybe a mom with a teen son who may not be able to get into some of the other shelters, primarily located in the city of Lansing. So there's a number of things that make us unique in the shelter community. And also in terms of our funding, we have really relied overall on a very even balance of grants, including local and municipal grants like this one, though in this case, funded through a federal source, but also individual donations. And so the financial contributions of many residents of East Lansing has been what's been able to make Haven House provide services effectively over the years and now. Again, I'm grateful for Council's leadership and consideration. I also want to just point out the value that other agencies are bringing and some of the highlights. I welcome any questions, and I'll yield the rest of my time, I think, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions Council may have or provide any other information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? And I do apologize, Councilmember Watson. I'm going to try to do that on a more regular basis. Normally, if we're in person, it's a little bit easier to have the back and forth. But all right, seeing none, Emily, would you mind moving to the next caller?
Caller with a phone number ending in 293 are now permitted to address council.
Thanks for having me here tonight to talk about EVE and consideration of CDBG money. My name is Derek Burcham, and I'm actually the new executive director at EVE. I've been there since March, so brand new. EVE, as you probably know, is also known as End Violent Encounters, and we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and our services are free to survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. We're probably best known for providing emergency shelter, but we also have a 24/7 crisis line. We provide intensive counseling, legal services, including running the PPO office in Ingham County, the courthouse. We have advocates who accompany survivors to court, to anything from sitting there with them just to be moral support to actual advocacy and interjection, depending on what's going on. We do medical advocacy at the hospital to make sure that they're understanding what's happening and have control over the situation, and of course, safety planning. We also have an elder abuse program and stalking service programs, and of course, education outreach programs and lots more. So in 2020, like the others, we pivoted to ensure that we could continue to provide the high quality services that we've been able to pre-pandemic. So that meant lots of Zoom sessions with counseling, meetings in open air spaces, things like that. But it did also mean some reduced capacity at our shelter. So we like Haven House and others tried to ensure that we could serve everyone that we could, and possibly put people in hotels and things like that to be able to get them through a tough situation. So in East Lansing alone in 2020, we had 76 survivors of domestic violence that we served, 31 sexual assault survivors, 23 stalking survivors, and 1 elder abuse, which totals 131 clients from East Lansing receiving comprehensive services from EVE in 2020. So we would like to thank you for your consideration, and of course our clients and our survivors that we work with would very appreciate the funding, and I can assure you we will spend it wisely and impactfully, and I'm here for any questions as well.
Thank you very much for being here, and thanks for the work that you do. Are there any members of council that would have a question? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll move on to the next caller. Emily?
Our next caller is Nicholas Pydek. You are now permitted to address council.
Mr. Pydek, you can unmute and feel free to speak to the council on this item for 5 minutes. And if you don't wish to speak on this item, you can just say pass. It's okay as well. All right. Just for context, Mr. Pydek is a business owner in East Lansing, and from early indication after a conversation we had earlier today, I believe he was going to speak on business support programming in general, but I'm not entirely positive, so we'll still call on him if at the next public hearing too. Emily, would you mind going to the next caller?
Those are all the callers we have on the line.
All righty. We are on to our third public hearing, which is a consideration of special assessment, roll number 76, DMB Principal Shopping District. And I believe this is again, Amy Schulzer-Schmidt. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. So this evening, this is the first of 2 public hearings regarding the proposed special assessment rule number 76. As city council members are aware, the special assessment is collected at a pretty modest rate to support economic development activities that are administered by the East Lansing Downtown Management Board, or DMB. Prior to this public hearing, city council did approve a resolution, a notice was sent out, and the special assessment rule was filed with the city clerk. In addition to having a written notice going out to all property owners that are affected by the special assessment. As a reminder, the special assessment has actually not increased since 1997, so it has remained at the same rate. And certainly given the COVID circumstances, it is the recommendation of the Downtown Management Board that we maintain that rate currently for the next 2 fiscal years and then reevaluate at that time. The special assessment rule was prepared for you by our city assessor, David Lee, who is also here to answer any questions that you might have regarding that. You will not make any final decisions this evening. A second public hearing is actually scheduled to be held on May 25th. And then at that time, you will consider approval of the special assessment through a resolution. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have this time.
Are there any questions for staff on this item? Great. I actually have a request. Oh, you know what? We have 2 people that just came up. So Mayor Pro Tem and then Councilmember Bacon.
Sorry, we're just not fast enough for you, Mayor Stevens.
My bad.
Amy, I'm sorry if you're not prepared for this. We were set to increase this pre-COVID. We had passed DMB just with that idea that it had not been increased in so long, and that we're considerably straining that budget in terms of what we're trying to do with it. Can you just remind me what we were going to raise it to? I'm definitely not suggesting that we do. I'm just curious to know what that suggestion was, if you have it at your fingertips.
Certainly. I think that staff had run a couple of scenarios, and one was like a 3 cent per square foot increase, and one was a 5 cent per square foot increase. At that time, I think that we were leaning a little more conservatively towards like a 3 cent per square foot increase.
Okay. I'm just kind of thinking, I mean, I'm obviously, I'm part of the DMB, and so I was part of the discussion in terms of suggesting that this not be raised for several years, just because ongoing COVID, we are going to keep seeing ongoing problems. Even after we get our vaccination rates under control, our business community is really struggling. And so I think at that point, I mean, I might be asking then for the higher if we're going to wait that much longer, but you know, that's in 2 years. So we'll talk about it then. But we really do, this money is very strained, I would say, to do all of the things that we try to do with it downtown. It supports some staff positions, but it always also supports a considerable amount of marketing and promotion in terms of the downtown. And so it is a relatively moderate amount that goes a very long way.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, Councilperson Greg already ruined my question, so I was going the same direction. And is there something in that workup that was in writing that I could get a look at, just kind of the proposed figures? Did you guys, that work that was done?
Certainly. I'm happy to share what was worked on last time, but just so council's aware, the special assessment has changed a bit. And so, there's a couple properties, for example, that have come online since the last one was upgraded. So I'm happy to share that. But I just wanted to kind of make council aware that, there would be a little bit of an adjustment factor.
That was great. I was just kind of looking for the question in a vacuum, but I understand with circumstances that probably not going to move. So she stole my question.
Okay, great. And then I will make my small request, and maybe this isn't really necessarily in relation to the item, but a caller brought up a really good point, which is preferred title and preferred name. And just, this is a very niche issue, but as mayor, when I call on staff members, I do try to call on folks via their title. It's a title that folks either prefer or have earned. And I think that definitely warrants respect. And so if at all possible, on staff or if the staff contact could also have like preferred title or preferred name. I mean, I'm always fine with being called Aaron. I have never been a person that has, wanted to be called Mayor Stevens, but I'm always good with Aaron, but that's me. And so I think it is important to recognize that. And I've been trying to do it a little bit better, but when I say director or administrator, I don't always know if I'm using the right title. And, I know some folks personally, and I try not to use first names, but occasionally I do. So if at all possible, and maybe that's something that I can instruct the council secretary to do on these agendas, but just preferred names would be nice for the future. Because that would mean that I'm, we're not putting anybody in a different perspective than what they'd want to be. So that's my tiny little request. It's not super relation to this. All right. We will open up the public hearing now. Emily, would you mind letting in any caller that wishes to speak on this subject?
Caller with the phone number ending in 375, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, it's Carl from Tri-County. I spoke on the CDPG. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Caller with the phone number ending in 646, you are now permitted to address council.
Yes.
Caller with the phone number ending in 963, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Alice Drager. Just two things. When I talk to downtown property owners and downtown business owners, one thing I hear is all of the ways that they get nickeled and dimed. And like Mayor Pro Tem Greg, I agree this is a very small charge, and raising it a little bit would have very little effect in terms of the individual owners, but it would have some effect in terms of the excellent work that the DMB is trying to do with Amy's excellent leadership on that. and also Adam's really great work on trying to get folks downtown. But I would ask that you consider evidence-based taxing in the sense that folks who are trying to do business downtown are getting charged through this special assessment. They're also paying extra costs through the DDA assessments. They're paying the 5% franchise fee on the BWL stuff. They pay in a typical year simply for putting a chair outside on the sidewalk so their customers can sit down. There's tremendous numbers of charges that go. And so one of the things I would ask is that could we think about what's actually happening with the money? And in the case of DMB, over and over again, Piper and Gold has been hired. Piper and Gold has done quite well out of this special assessment. But when they come forward and they bring information on what they've done, what they bring forward is things like, we did this number of campaigns and we got this number of impressions on social media and we did this number of tweets. What a business owner, and I'm sure Mayor Burcham Greg would back me up on this, what a business owner really cares about is, did somebody come and spend money? And so if there's any way that we can think about whether or not this money is actually resulting in greater economic development downtown for somebody other than Piper and Gold, I think that would be critically important to do. And there may be ways for the businesses to help figure out whether or not that's being effective or whether or not that should be changed in terms of its direction. Secondly, this is not exactly about what you're talking about, but I was struck as a downtown issue. So the mayor spoke of the ending of the mask order as essentially, we have decided this and we have these reasons. And in fact, within about 20 seconds of the consent agenda being passed, I received in my email a press release about the ending of the mask order, which was obviously written beforehand. And that press release is also written as if it was, we decided. The mayor uses the phrase we. So I would love to know when and where council made this decision, because it does not appear council made the decision in the meeting tonight. It would appear council made the decision exterior to an open meeting, unless I'm missing something, unless I missed a meeting. I have had long-running concerns about transparency with all councils, but this one in particular, as you probably know. So I am curious, who made the decision, where the decision was made? Did the council make the decision as a whole behind closed doors? If the council didn't make a decision as a whole, then did a majority go and make the decision without consulting the rest of council? Because it does not appear to me that this was a decision made tonight when I got a press release 5 seconds after the vote and the decision was described as being done in the collective first person. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Councilmember Babcock and then the city manager.
Thanks. I will just say that I share concerns about transparency, but I will say that I was certainly not part of any conversation beforehand. I do know that the mask mandate downtown has caused problems or perceived problems for our businesses. And I cannot speak to the thought behind it. I know I did not share my views with anyone, but my guess is that it was there, queued up, ready to go in case it passed. That's all I got to say.
Yep. City manager, and then I'll go on that.
Yep. So this was something that we had conversations with Linda Vale, public health officer, over time every week. It was recommended from public health that we consider eliminating the mask order at this point. I talk with council on a regular basis and informed the people I had talked to last week that we intended to bring this as a possible consideration for council. And in order to expedite the press releases, we very frequently have press releases that are prepared in advance. It doesn't mean we're going to send them out before council acts. And if council acts differently, then we don't send them out or we change them. So there's nothing wrong with being prepared. We want to be able to announce people what our actions are and to be able to get that out on a timely basis. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a couple of things on this. So I said at the beginning of my comments that if this passes council and that it hasn't passed council yet, and I also want to note that the date of when this mask order goes away is in about 4 hours. So the point of having that kind of press release queued up in case this does pass is to make sure that we're getting that information out as quick as possible. And, you know, when conversations occur, honestly, I think that myself and the mayor pro tem have had this conversation because we interact with MSU on those weekly meetings. And I didn't talk to other council members about it really besides the fact that it was on an agenda. And, you know, when you talk about something in terms of really the timeline that it was laid out, the fact that the mask mandate went away 4 hours from now, I think it was more than appropriate for staff to have a press release queued up so we could get that information out. So, and then Councilmember Babcock, go ahead, and then the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. And on a lighter but also morbid note, I will tell you that when I was a reporter, there were reporters assigned to writing obituaries of famous people and updating them regularly. So Associated Press or New York Times could crank out an immediate obituary if, say, Ronald Reagan or Brad Pitt were to die. So this is not unheard of. In fact, if we didn't do it, we'd be looking a little silly. So thank you.
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I think everybody has said everything I have to say in regards to the mask mandate. But I wanted to just call attention to one other point that Dr. Drager just made, which was she made a kind of offhanded comment about chairs outside of businesses. And I did want to say that that is one thing that we are actively looking at revising our fee schedule in terms of outdoor spaces at restaurants. I think our economic development team has made a pretty concerted effort to communicate with our downtown businesses regularly, and that has been a two-way communication. We are receiving input from businesses and actively trying to update our policies and fees, partially in terms of COVID, but partially also just in creating a more lively downtown district. So I think, you know, things that have happened in the past are not necessarily permanent to continue into the future. Everything is in flux, and we are constantly looking for feedback from whomever we can receive it from.
Great. Thanks. Emily, would you mind letting in the next caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 977, you are now permitted to address council.
I'll pass.
Caller Nicholas Pydek, you are now permitted to address council.
Yeah, hi.
Yep, hello, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, thank you. So Nick Pydek at 196 Albert Avenue. Just speaking on this, there's several topics that have come up here tonight, and I just want to come to you on a positive note. I know council members don't always get that luxury, and you guys are in the crossfires many of the times, but I want to encourage council and city staff to continue to champion these efforts, whether it's the shopping district or the daytime, nighttime, anytime efforts that have just really, really pivoted during COVID to help draw people downtown. Just continue to press into that, as the previous councilwoman just spoke about. Everything's in flux. There's going to be positives and negatives no matter what you do, but just know that there are business owners, there are people that are here and want to support these efforts to draw more people downtown, to be creative, whether it's the closure of Albert Avenue or using parking structures for farmers markets, or something as nominal from a fee perspective for the shopping district, to just incentivize and reshape the narrative, whether it's the mask mandate change or whatever. Consumers are dictated by public perception. They spend dollars based off of perceptions, not facts, not reality. That is just basic economics. So you guys factoring that stuff into considerations for the decisions that you make, trying to rally everybody together for a common vision. I just want you to hear from one business owner downtown, and many others. I mean, I sent a petition to council that's probably over 150 signatures now of just supporting these efforts, not just the Albert Avenue project, but just to continue to draw people downtown. So my charge and comment is just please continue to do this. Please continue to talk to business owners You are getting our feedback. I've been on the phone with 2 council members within the last week talking about subjects on this matter. I am a resource for staff. We are the test beds, right? Because we're on the front lines of trying to figure this out, whether it's sidewalk seating, or pivot to online ordering, or reacting to citywide mask mandates, but continue to do that. I just want to applaud you guys, and a special mention to Adam Cummings and the DDA's efforts to bring this stuff together. Thank you to the staff there for doing that. You guys are oftentimes the unsung heroes, or the great punching bag for everybody else, but continue to do what you're doing, continue to garner feedback, and just continue to help pivot in this new economy and this new world that we live in. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the caller? All right, not seeing any. Emily, what do you mind? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment. Yeah, just thank you for that caller and some positive input there, and just know that we are open to ideas and a lot of creative thinking right now, and definitely want to be aggressive coming out of the pandemic, and definitely don't have all the answers to what's going to work, and sometimes may have a blind spot on what action might create an unintended consequence. So definitely for the business owners downtown and otherwise, we want to hear from you at this point to try to jumpstart things and be very aggressive with it in any way we could support you around, be it fees or activities and that type of thing. And then as I've been sitting here, just to address the point of transparency that's kind of stuck in my craw right now. That question of transparency was a kind of a ridiculous comment about this council. And I don't think not getting the answer you want doesn't mean someone's not being transparent. So I don't take kindly to those comments, and I think they're unfounded. But thank you very much.
All right.
Previous caller.
Thank you. Emily, would you mind letting in the next caller if there is one?
Caller with the phone number ending in 017, you are now permitted to address council.
Caller with the phone number ending in 017, you can feel free to hit *6 on your phone. You should unmute. You'll have 5 minutes to speak to the council. Give that one more time. Caller with the phone number ending in 017. If you hit *6 on your phone, you should be able to unmute and speak to the full council. If you don't wish to speak to the full council, you can unmute and just say pass. All right, I will move on, and I believe that caller will be called on one more time as we get to the next public hearing as well.
Those are all the callers we have online.
All right, thank you very much. And Amy, there's no required action on this item today, correct?
That's correct. You will consider taking action on May 25th.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we are on to our next item, which is item 4.4, consideration of a special use permit application from Collegiate Catering, East Lansing, to establish restaurant license, sale of alcoholic beverages, 133. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to mention also that we had intended to bring this back to CDBG for another discussion for council next week, so that if you had any changes or anything like that, so before coming for final, is that still your intent or still your desire?
Yeah, at this point, given especially Councilmember Watson's comments and some of the interest from other members of council, I think that would be appropriate, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, sir.
No, absolutely not a problem. Councilmember Watson, I apologize. I didn't mean to speak on your behalf. Would that be something that you would be interested in doing?
Yeah, and I mean, I see the CBD public hearing as part of our budget, and so you all have said that we'll have an opportunity to make amendments to the budget. So yeah, definitely I want to see it again.
Great. All right, that'll be at our next week's meeting.
Thanks. Here.
All right, on to our next item, and Mr. Peter Menzer is joining us for the first time to discuss this item. Welcome to the city. although you are still local. So, and you're muted, just so you know.
There I am. All right. Hi, everybody. So good evening. It's my pleasure to share with you the special use permit request from Collegiate Catering East Lansing LLC. That's a special use permit for the establishment of a restaurant license for the sale of alcoholic beverages. In this case, it's actually 2 locations within the Graduate Hotel on Evergreen. Proposed for alcohol sales. One is a cafe on the ground floor of the building, and one is a rooftop restaurant. So one quick note, this agenda item focuses on the special use permit for the alcohol sales as a land use. It's not the liquor license itself, which is on your agenda under 5.2 under the business agenda. So the Planning Commission has reviewed this request at its meeting on March 24 and recommended approval. And you'll see within the packet materials, both the fire department and police department have reviewed and signed off on the proposal, and the DDA has recommended approval as well. So for your consideration in the cover memo is a motion to approve the special use permit subject to the conditions recommended by the Planning Commission, which include limitations on occupancy and hours of operation, among other standard conditions of approval. I'm available for any questions you might have on this request. And I believe we heard during communications that there are representatives from the applicant here as well.
Absolutely. Before I open it up for a public hearing, did any member of council have a question for staff on this item? There will be another opportunity for that certainly after the public hearing, but I wanted to open that up.
This might be a silly question, but can you explain the difference between special use permit as a land use and a license to sell? I mean, like I'm assuming they can have a license to sell, but if we don't approve it as a land use, do they just have a license they can't use? Like they both have to pass, right? Sorry if that sounds.
No, until it makes total sense. And the reason I brought it up was just to differentiate this from agenda item 5.2, which is the approval of the liquor license itself. They will need both. They need the special use permit to operate the restaurant that sells alcohol, and also the approval of the city to get the liquor license from the MLCC.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions of staff before I open this up?
Question.
Absolutely.
So I was curious about the recommendation number 4, persons under 21 years of age shall not be permitted after 11 p.m. just because, 18 and up is 18 is adult age. So I was just curious about that conversation or why it's not 18.
Yeah, thanks. I apologize. I don't have the history on this project. So if maybe Mr. Fehrenbach is on, he could chime in on that one, or if anyone else might know from our team.
Is Mr. Fehrenbach with us? I do not know. Yep, there we go.
Good evening, Council. This is Tom Fehrenbach. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Thank you.
So that is a standard condition that's been applied throughout the years to any SUP regarding the service of on-premise alcohol. And I think the intent is just to be in alignment with the standards that the council has previously set. Certainly something we could talk about, but I think the intent there is just that, after 11 p.m., anybody in the service area would be over 21.
I guess just like a point of clarification, because one of these service areas is actually the lobby of the hotel. So is that going to cause problems for them of like having 18 and up barred from their lobby after 11 p.m.? Or can they just kind of like barricade off the cafe section?
That might be a question that's appropriate for the applicant. They've certainly indicated that that it's doable from an operational standpoint, but how that's actually mechanized might be a better question directed to the applicant.
Perfect. I will ask them.
And folks that are in the attendees that have indicated they wanted to speak on the item, I'm sure that they just heard that question. So.
I look forward to a clearer explanation.
Great. Any other questions for staff? All right, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. I know that we have a number of folks that wanted to speak on the subject. Emily, would you please let those folks in? Thank you, Mr. Fehrenbach, for joining us.
Caller with the phone number ending in 895, you are now permitted to address council.
Hello, I'm here to listen to the discussion about the agenda item. I have no contributions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Caller with the phone number ending in 386, you are now permitted to address council.
Just to answer the question that was given earlier regarding the Poindexter Barista area, it's going to be primarily a coffee shop that's open from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m.
Awesome. Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Caller with the phone number ending in 889, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, I'm just here representing the applicant to answer any additional questions. I think the question was addressed, so I pass at this time.
Great. And I'll just open that one more time. If any member of council does have a question for the applicant, this would be a good time to ask.
Caller with the phone number ending in 017, you are now permitted to address council.
Hello, I'm also here for the applicant, and I believe the question was addressed, but happy to answer any others. Thanks.
Great. All right. Would mind letting the next caller, and members of council, feel free to just chime in if you do.
Jessica Maury, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, I am also here on behalf of the applicant to answer any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Nicholas Pydek, you are now permitted to address council.
Nothing to speak on this issue. Sorry, I'm still in the meeting, but thank you.
All good.
Those are all the callers on the line.
All righty. Thank you very, very much. We are on to the item, and there is action needed on this. Are there any other questions for staff? Any discussion the council wants to have on this item? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I was just unmuting in preparation of moving the motion.
All righty. I will entertain a motion. Absolutely.
I will move approval of a special use permit from Collegiate, special use permit application from Collegiate Catering East Lansing LLC to establish a restaurant licensed for the sale of alcoholic beverages at 133 Evergreen Avenue.
All right. And is that subject to the 18 conditions laid out by the Planning Commission?
It is indeed. Thank you for calling that to my attention.
Awesome.
I don't believe we have any additional things to add, just the 18 conditions from the Planning Commission.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Babcock, motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion on this item? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All righty. We are now going to move on to our business agenda. I'm going to ask council, though, we only have 2 items on this business agenda that I don't believe necessarily will take very long. Did we want to break before we went to the business agenda, or are we all right powering through? One of the two, either way.
I'm okay with powering through.
Okay.
Push if we can.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
okay. You promise 9:05.
All right, sounds good.
Clock's ticking, students, get to it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to item 5.1, which is loading up. Sorry. And I believe this is Mr. Menser again. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. So on your agenda tonight is an application to establish a local open space development rights easement for approximately 353 acres of land on property known locally and operating as the Helmish Sod Farm. So this request is under the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Program, which is part of Michigan Department of Agricultural Rural Development program. There is a lot of information in your proposal, on this proposal in your meeting packet, but basically, if approved, this easement would establish that land as open space for up to 90 years, during which time the property would remain undeveloped and the owner of the property would receive some tax benefits. It should be noted the taxable value of the property will not be impacted by the development rights easement, as it's currently used for farming and is expected to be used that way in the foreseeable future. I'd like to note that the city has followed the required review process for this request, which we probably have not seen for quite a while, which included notifications to Clinton County Planning Commission, the Tri-County Planning Commission, and Clinton County Soil Conservation District. So none of those agencies raised any issues with the proposal, and if you see in the packet, there were responses to our request for comments included. So a motion is provided to approve the open space development rights easement resolution and the agreement. It's two separate things. There's a resolution and an agreement, which will need to be signed by the city manager. The agreement, which will need to be signed by the city manager. Please, if you could, in your motion, if you could include authorizing the city manager to sign the agreement, to be appreciated. That was something I discovered that was not included this afternoon that does need to be included in the motion. I'm available for any questions you might have, and I believe the property owner is on the call tonight to answer any questions.
All right, great. Any questions for staff on this? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I just, apologies that it was not clear to me after reading this memo. So the open space designation does not impact their ability to continue to farm the land as they have been. It just precludes it from having physical structures built on it.
That is correct. The land can
Okay.
be continued to be used as it is now.
Okay, got it. That was my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff on this?
Mayor Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just so you know, the resolution that's included in the packet would authorize the city manager to execute any and all documents necessary for the approval. That is in paragraph number 3 of the resolution. So if the city council is so inclined, it would be a motion to approve the resolution, which approves the easement and authorizes the city manager to execute it.
Great. Understood. And that makes sense to me. All right. Again, I'm gonna just ask any questions on this item a little bit. And Mr. Menser, you might not have all the background on this, but this seems like this is fairly unique. At least I haven't seen this on a council agenda before. Would you mind giving a little bit of the history of this this type of action and maybe even the purpose behind it? I'd like to know a little bit more.
You're correct. I don't have a lot of history on this. I think the general intent, my previous employment at Meridian Township, there's part of the sod farm, a very small part, is also in the township. I think the general idea is it's just a vehicle through the agriculture department to allow some tax breaks for owners of property that are willing to forego development rights for an extended amount of time to preserve the farmland.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Great. If there are no further questions of staff, I'll entertain a motion on this. I'm happy to make one as well, if necessary. All right. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to authorize local open space development easement and local open space development easement agreement for the request from Joan and Dave Johnson for parcels 19-20, -10, -30, -100, -020, and 19-20, -10, -31, -100, -011, part of what is more commonly known as the Hal-Mitch Sod Farm. Is there a second on that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, go ahead.
With permission for city manager to sign, was that the additional?
Our city attorney chimed in and indicated that on the resolution in a paragraph that I can't remember what he said, that the resolution itself authorized the city manager to sign any executing documents.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. That was a second by the mayor pro tem, correct?
Correct.
Great. Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously. We are on to our next item, which is 5.2, I think a continuation of our previous public hearing, and I will hand this over one more time to, actually, this is Adam Cummins.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Yeah, we just had a public hearing on this topic regarding the SUP for the Graduate Hotel. What this is a consideration of a resolution to recommend to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission the issuance of a quota license to Collegiate Catering East Lansing LLC for a Class B hotel liquor license to allow on-premises services of alcohol for hotel and restaurant use located at 133 Evergreen Avenue. So essentially, this is the next step in the process for the graduate to obtain their liquor license from the state. And council staff is recommending that council consider passing this resolution using the attached form LCC-106, which is just essentially saying, documenting the resolution, the votes, and supporting the graduate's application to the state.
Okay. Any questions on this item? Although I know that there were some previous questions that were answered by the applicant. Give that one more second. Any other questions? All righty. Trying to be more cognizant. All right, then if there are no questions and no discussion, I will entertain a motion on this item. All right, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Hang on a second. I lost my page. I will move approval of a resolution to recommend to the Liquor Control Commission the issuance of a quota license to Collegiate Catering East Lansing LLC for a Class B hotel liquor license to allow on-premises service of alcohol for hotel and restaurant use located at 133 Evergreen Avenue.
Great. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bacon, motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. At some point, this isn't necessarily in relation to this item, but given just the conversation on the RHC, given our conversations regarding, alcohol in the downtown and outdoor dining, it is interesting to know and understand a little bit more about our interaction with the state on liquor and our ability to control certain things where we have to give recommendations on others. At some point, I might request maybe a little bit more of an in-depth conversation about where we play into that, because I think that it might garner some opportunities for us to try and encourage, some more business growth and development in the area. So that is what I have on it. Councilmember Babcock, go ahead.
Thanks. A friendly thought. We have Pat Gagliardi, one of the 3 members of the Liquor Control Commission, who lives here in the community, and I'm sure he would be interested in either speaking with us or sending someone from Liquor Control to speak with us. Maybe we could have a discussion-only meeting on the subject at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great. And
he's going to love that I volunteered him.
Great. And maybe I'll reach out to you to get his contact info too. All right, we have a motion on the table. Any discussion? Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously. That was our last item on the agenda tonight. We will see everybody back here next week. Thank you for being with us and sticking with us through